No matter your scale, subject or skill level, you're among fellow benchmates. Welcome to Beyond the Box Art, the Scale Modelers Podcast. Joining us for episode 33, we are joined by Michael Blalok from Patriot Models in the USA to talk about the new Vetrans modeling initiative. Your host, as usual, is Brownie, with his co-hosts Stan, Nevs, Balders and Shane.
Hi Benchmates, welcome to episode 33 of Beyond the Box Art. And for this episode we are joined by Michael Blalok from Patriot Models in the USA to talk about the new charity that's being started over in the States, similar to Models for Heroes in the UK. But for this episode I am joined by Mr. Dan Brazil.
Hiya Benchmates.
Mr. James Nevitt.
Hello everybody.
And from his little home in Scotland, Hamish McBoulders.
Hello.
We're doing it in English this time, that's a bonus.
No, it's German. Hallo, H-A-L-L-O.
Oh.
It's hallo in German.
Fair enough. You had a of Germanic days, have you?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Moving on very swiftly.
Quickly, yes, please.
Dan, what have you got on your bench? Please, help.
Right, models, concentrate. Yes, well, as I said, haven't been anywhere near the airbrush with the rather temperate conditions we've had. So I've been building, and I think I mentioned on the last one, I took the Tamiya 32nd P51D Mustang kit down to open the box and sniff the plastic and start thinking, oh, what am I going to do with this? And before I knew it, I'd built the Packard Merlin engine that's in it. I had to think then, it's not a normal Merlin, it's a Packard under license built Merlin, isn't it? So I built that, and I've just been building, and I tell you what, nothing builds like these. They are, the precision fit of everything is beautiful. But I have been adding a little bit of extra cabling and stuff like that to the cockpit side walls.
Now, you talk about precision build. What is the difference between an English-built Merlin and an American Merlin? Do you know?
Can't say I do. No.
The tolerances on the American Merlins, basically the drawings were sent from Rolls-Royce across to the States.
Yeah.
And the tolerances that Rolls produced the components to was too tight for the American manufacturing.
Right.
So the Americans basically redrew most of the components. And actually, none of the UK Merlin spare parts will fit a Packard Merlin and vice versa.
Ah, I see. Well, that's interesting to know.
Rolls-Royce Merlins are less likely to go wrong than Packard.
Yeah. Well, I've added some extra details to this one because there's not enough there. And I didn't really want to go down the road of buying a 3D printed, all singing, all dancing 32nd Merlin engine. So I thought I'd do some proper modelling and a bit of scratch building and get the brass pipe out and various bits and pieces of wire. I have had to order some lead wire because some of the wire that I have is flexible, but it wants to spring back. Now, the lead wire, I've ordered a few different gauges because I need to just work out what's going to be more usable going forward with various kits rather than buying loads and then not really needing to use half of it. But I don't think it's actual lead. I think it's more the sort of lead substitute type wire. But I've ordered some of that anyway to carry on adding a few little extra bits and pieces. But I would say that if anybody is doing it, you have to, I mean, first of all, with this kit, the instructions, you have to follow every step of the instructions because this is the third iteration, I think, that Tamiya did of this kit, and it looks like they only use one set of instructions for all of them. Now, there's an A option, a B and a C option, and they're in a little shaded box in each step, and you have to pay attention. And then they've got the sort of left and right hand sided arrows. There's little sub instructions. You have to read all of it and get your head around it before you start getting the cutters and the glue out, because it can have a knock-on effect a lot later on in the kit. So with adding the wires, one thing that I noticed was the ones that I'd put in, the cockpit floor was actually failing on some of the wires. So I had to make sure that they were pushed up out of the way so that the cockpit floor will fit into those sections. And it's not a weekend build sort of Edward kit. You've just got to pay attention. But it's my first 32nd scale kit I've built, this one. So hopefully
It won't be your last.
I don't think it will be by the new Edward. Sorry, I'm trying to get my head around it. The
Royal class.
P51B that's coming out, the Royal class. Yep, that's on the list.
Which lead way did you order, Dan?
I've ordered a meter cutting of it from eBay.
I've got the art scale stuff.
Right, okay.
And that ranges from like 0.1 up to like millimeter. And it's
Yes.
really good for doing all the cabling.
Yes.
And it takes paint superbly.
Oh, does it?
Absolutely. The art scale stuff takes paint, because obviously it's metal. So when you're airbrushing, you expect, especially with brass, like if you've got brass gun barrels and that, when you spray it, if you knock it, because the paint's not etched into it, obviously you have to be careful. But that is just so forgiving that you can literally just airbrush all your colour of your cables.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, as a belt and braces approach, I'd probably just etch prime it all anyway. Even it doesn't hurt to just prime the whole lot, whether you think you're going to need it or not, you know.
No.
So yeah, I know Brownie, I think was it you that mentioned SMS do a etch primer?
They do an etch, yes, and it will actually do resin, metal and plastic. And it's a clear liquid. And as I said to you at the time, just put a spot of black in with the clear, just so you can see where you've been. But if you put that on the metal before you paint, it will be fine.
Okay. The only thing that concerns me about this kit is the rubber wheels.
Perfectly fine rubber. They do not degrade.
They don't go gungy, because I know that the old 70s, like for example, the LRDG Chevy kit, I've had a few of them over the years, and some of the older ones, when you buy them, you always check the wheels and they've gone slimy where they've started to degrade.
Oil started coming out.
Yeah, I would assume that this is a lot more modern rubber in these kits, so hopefully it won't degrade. I've never painted rubber wheels before. I don't think I need to. Would like pastels and weathering sets do for putting something on?
Bit of pastel, bit of oil on them. Just give them. Me personally, I would just get like 1,000 grit sanding stick and just give them a bit of a scuff.
Bit of a rough, yeah.
Because they're too smooth. If you look at rubber tyres, when, you know, especially coming into landing and stuff like that, there'll be quite a bit of scuffing on the central tread. But failing that, if you don't want to use them, Edward do some lovely resin wheels.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few. I think Barracuda, Edward, I think ResKit. I'm sure ResKit do some. I think there's loads.
ASK, I think, do some as well, but
ASK do some as well.
yeah.
A
question. What type of tread have you got on those tyres?
I think they're the crosshatch.
Okay, so you've got grass tyres.
Yeah, so they're like that.
Yeah. So you've got almost a diamond pattern on them.
That's it.
If you've got an aircraft that's operating from an airfield with a tarmac runway, you'll just have the concentric circles going around.
Ah, okay.
If it's operating from a grass runway, you'll have the crosshatch or the square.
Yeah, the crosshatch. Well, I'm probably not going to use kit decals, because this actually is the P51DK, so it's the Pacific boxing, and I want to do, surprise, a Mighty 8th one.
Well, there's a surprise.
Oh, I know, yeah. I might go Leaston, or I might go, I'm not sure yet, 4 Fighter Group maybe at Debden, which would be...
So were they grass runways, or were they tarmac, or were they PSP, pierce steel planking?
Oh, God. Or I could do Bottisham, because Bottisham was Mustangs, but Bottisham did have PSP, because the Thunderbolts that were there they're nearly 7 ton all up weight, aren't they?
Yeah.
And when we went there to visit, the chap said, well, that's where the runway was over there, and it's now woods, because one of the major A roads crosses it. And he said that there's bent up PCP all sort of gnarly into the wood that's grown there.
Yeah.
And he said they had to put that down for the Thunderbolt. So I don't know, really. I'll make a decision, choose an aircraft, make a decision, and then find as many reference photos as I can of it. And hopefully some of them will be on the ground and not all in flight with the wheels up, because it won't be much use, will it?
Well, if you want information on the airfield to what type of runways they had, PSP or grass or tarmac, just give us a shout, because I've got an extensive library on that sort of information. But if it was a PSP, they would have had grass tyres rather than tarmac tyres.
Okay, that's good to know. So yeah, and spendies wise, I did buy the HGW seatbelt set for it.
Yes.
Is it HGW? The fabric seatbelts, because the only thing I'll say is Tamiya photo etch is a bit like sheet steel. It's really, really thick. And I don't like the seatbelts in it anyway. They're a bit one-dimensional. So I have got HGW seatbelt set coming for it. And you get 2 in there, so I can use them on another potential P51 Mustang project. And I've also bought, now these were second hand, but they came as a pair, the Sam Publications guide Part 1 and Part 2 on the Allison engine Mustangs and the Merlin powered, both by Malcolm V. Lowe. And the Allison one is book number 21 from Sam Publications, P51 Mustang, and the second one is number 24. I'll be honest with you, I'm probably never going to need any other books on the Mustang. And there's model builds in the back of it as well, which is great. So
I was going to suggest, if you wanted a little bit more reference material and have it instantly, the Detail and Scale series on the Mustang. They've done 3 books in total.
yeah.
The latest version on the version that you're actually building, which includes was it the K?
D.
And...
It does include the K, sorry, yes, it does, yes. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, the stuff on Detail and Scale, that will give you a lot more insight than those books. They are absolutely superb, and they've got about 200 photographs in there, most of them in colour, and a lot of them wartime.
That's the key, isn't it? Because Tamiya do give you a little booklet with these.
Yeah.
But it's a museum reference, and they're all sort of thumbnail size, and I need to see it big,
Yeah, because I've got the 132nd Spit, both the Mark 9 and the Mark 16 low back in that series. Now, have you got the one-piece cowl in the Mustang?
No, it's the magnetic
system on the Mustang.
Okay.
Which is why the build has got to be bang on, because the tolerances of those,
Yeah.
they're gossamer thin panels. If any of it's slightly out, then they're not going to fit properly. So I've got to get it bang on. But I mean, it says Tamiya on the box. So far, it's built beautifully. I'm very, very happy with it.
But it's a natural metal finish that you're looking for.
I have, yeah, but remember, I stocked up a while ago on my favourite Mr. Super Metallic 2s. I've got the whole range, so I will do some testing on those.
Good point.
I'm going to test under black gloss.
Mm-hmm.
I've also got Mr. Rapid Thinner.
Yeah.
For doing metallics. I mean, I wouldn't dare do any of it in this weather, because I'm nowhere near that stage yet, because it would turn into sandpaper, I think, by the time the paint hits it.
Oh, it'll be rough.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah. So, but the rapid thinner it almost helps the particles, the metallic particles. It makes them stand up, so to speak, rather than sort of going flat. So for the chromes and the more brighter metal finishes, you get more of the brightness in them. But yeah, I'm using only one airbrush for that. My dog rough airbrush that I've got. I wouldn't put any metallics in my nice ones.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes, mate.
Get Tamiya LP 72 mica silver, and trust me, you'll thank me later.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because that is airframe aluminium.
Oh, is it?
Tamiya do rattle can of airframe aluminium. Obviously, you don't like to use rattle cans. I don't like to use rattle cans.
No.
But when they brought out the LP range, they have done mica silver, which is airframe aluminium.
Yeah, because I don't really want to faff around with trying to decant a rattle can and wait for it to off gas.
No, I don't. Yeah. LP72, mica silver, and LP48, which is called sparkling silver, which gives you that chrominess. So underneath, the best in here where the supercharger intake is generally a bit shinier than I can't find the Mustang that I did because it's really annoying me. And I've done it with that, done all the bits, and then airframe aluminium the wings, and then flat them off, and then gloss black the fuselage and go over with mica silver, and it just pops. Gives you all your rivet detail, your panel lines.
Yeah.
But it's worth just have a bit of a test. Just get plastic spoons are your best friend. Spray it gloss black, leave it, and go over with.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, I wouldn't just hose it on. I do that quite often with kits. I just go, let's just get the thing painted and see how it comes out. But because these are quite special, aren't they? And they're not cheap, and I think it's worth just having just a test, just to see what you think is going to be the best outcome for getting, hopefully, a fairly decent model out of it.
Okay, so other than the books, any other spends?
No, mate, no, that's it at the moment.
Fair enough. Okay then, moving on. Nevs. Other than obviously a lot of tequila, what have you been buying recently?
Oh, starting with purchases now. Okay, so literally just before we came on, so when I was at the Shropshire Expo at the weekend, I didn't buy anything for me, which was very good. There was very limited traders apart from myself there, to be fair.
Oh.
There was a couple of others, one of whom I don't go near with a barge pole, but I won't get into that. But
Well, that's narrowed it down if there was only a couple of traders there.
There was, funnily enough, King Kit were there though. And I spoke to Andy, the owner of King Kit, and he's such a nice chap. I did say if he wants to come on the pod, we'd be interested in hearing from him. He was amazing. And when you get that impression when someone comes over, they're thinking, you've parked my tanks on your lawn sort of speech. Is it going to be, because my stand was literally there and his was there. So I thought, is he going to be trying to push his chest out a bit? But he was so friendly. Really just there to give advice. So the long story of that is that I've just put my order in with King Kit because they do the second-hand stuff. So I told him, and I said, oh, you're King Kit. I said, I've been waiting to finally see you at a show, and they'll never do Telford, but they do the Shropshire one. So they had their stand. I didn't buy anything off the stand, but like I say, I've placed a very nautical order with them because they have all of the scrapyard stuff, which is essentially like just shipped parts that people don't want. There's parts missing, whatever it is, which would be great for scratch building. And then they have a few German destroyers lying around, which, especially the way that Dragon has gone, if you want a Dragon kit, now's the time to try and snap them up. I feel like the second Jurassic World film where they're going extinct and you're trying to save them. So I snapped up a Dragon kit that he had at a very reasonable price as well. So that's just a long, convoluted way of saying, yeah, the ship expenses are not letting up.
Okay, so how was the show in general?
The show...
Did you get a chance to look around?
I didn't really. As I said on the group, any photos I took were within a 10-metre radius of where I'd been, because it was me, myself and I. But the show was very good. In terms of the people organising it, they might take Bolton's Nation Has Been Friendliest, because they were so welcoming and energetic, honestly.
For those actually listening to the show, which 99.9% of the people all are, Boulders has just given Nevs a two-finger salute.
Yes, it's a good thing we're audio only, but yeah, they were very energetic, very welcoming. It was the first time they've held it at that university, so considering going from Cotford to that, it was always going to be trial by fire. And obviously they had the Dakota flyover as well, which was very well done. Came to about 300 feet, I want to say. You might know a bit better than I do. Yep, 300 feet. So that was good. It did free loops over. So everyone enjoyed that. That was the only time I really managed to get out. So, but yes, it went very well. And
you can tell Nevs is nautical, can't you? That was 3 orbits, not 3 loops, because DC3 pulling a loop would actually be hilarious.
Yeah, it took its wings off for starters on the first loop.
Not designed for aerobatic, Nevs.
Would it? Well, when you say orbits, you make it sound like the space station circuit. There we go. So to be fair, your lingo isn't inclusive. So We'll leave it at that.
Oh dear. Yes, okay. So have you done any work on the bench since you've been back from Hollybobs, or are you still building up to it?
I have. So I've finally got the first layer of paint down on Scharnhorst, which is I'm doing the belt strap. So as you probably know, pretty much all ships have a waterline level, which is normally a very dark colour, black. But the German one is more of an anthracite grey. So to try and get that colour, I've done 6 parts Humbrol 33 to 3 parts Ammo's Schwarzgrau, just to give it a more of a black grey colour. And then I've washed it over with the glaze of Humbrol 241, which I like to use for propeller hubs of all things when you're doing Lafleur aircraft, because it's like a black greeny colour, because obviously their propeller hubs weren't black, they were this off black greeny colour. So I've used that, and I did the Nassau as well. But to be honest, even with us extending the deadline at Bolton to have our builds done, this still isn't anywhere near done. And it is a bit disheartening, because you're like, this was your one chance to get it done. But like I said to the guys in the committee the other night, these Flyhawk kits, they are honestly the Swiss watches of the modelling world. You don't realise how much goes into them. When I spoke on the Stash report about trumpeters 1 to 200 scale turpits having 1800 parts, this is probably the same, and this is in 700 scale. So I don't want to rush it. Part of me is, I don't want to say lost interest, because I've not, but wants to put it on the back burner and just get a little plane or something. I'm open to suggestions for what to do to get my mojo back. I still love it, still love the subject, still want it done, but I'm a bit like, maybe I need to take the foot off the pedal a little bit, otherwise it's just going to go straight out of the window.
As a little palate cleanser, treat yourself to a 1/72 Tamiya Zero.
I've got them. I remember I picked one up at Samsbury as well.
Yes, you did.
The other thing is, our friend Mike Jolly put a little teaser out where he said, it's that time of the week where I'm putting my Hanance order in. And obviously, like I spoke about in the last couple of episodes, there are a few 72nd aircraft that have come out. There's a few Japanese Raidens that have come out. There's the Tojos come out, which I want to do. And of course, there's the Italian stuff as well. So it might just tempt me to put the order in and say, right, I'll unbox one of those.
Okay. Well, I haven't done any building whatsoever due to A, the temperature, and B, unfortunately, 1-to-1 scale life, as Dan would say. But one thing I have bought, or put and placed an order for, is a couple of bottles of VMS liquid. I've bought the Transper Fix 6K to adhere canopies to models, and a bottle of the Universal Weathering Carrier Light Type. Now, the Universal Weathering Carrier will take away any spill of the adhesive that goes onto your clear perspex, which is what the other glue is designed for, and leave absolutely no residue and not damage the perspex in any way whatsoever. And this comes on the back of a night shift video, because he's just done himself a B2 Spirit. And it filled the cracks around the edge of the perspex in the case of, this is a handy little tip. So thanks, Night Shift. Yes, bought myself a couple of bottles of literally adhesive and cleaner, but that's the one thing I've been stopping me finishing off my Airfix hands, and was the fact of securing the perspex in and cocking up, putting glue on it. With this stuff, I think the solution is there.
Or clear resin glue.
I looked at clear resin glue, but it's just because the way the perspex is on the Anson, it's so long, and trying to hold it in place to actually get it to actually go without it wicking anywhere. This stuff will literally paint it on, wait for it to dry, take off the excess, job done. So that's the route I'm going to go with it, and hopefully get the Anson across the line.
I do think we could do with having a resource bank on the website, because if you go back to, I don't know about episode 1, but even the very first episodes when we're getting guests on or whoever it is, everyone has got one product that they recommend. So last week, it was John Bryan. I'm thinking Byron's Burgers. John Bryan.
Yeah, but he had some margaritas while he was in Mexico. Bloody hell.
John Bryan was recommending the glue that he was using. So when we were there, I did put a note into Google, but I think if we made a little resource bank,
Yeah.
everything that looks like glass was one that we had last year, I remember. But to be fair, based on this podcast, every second product that we recommend would be Boulder's resin glue.
What? He's obviously got shares. But I'll tell you what, little task, Luke, you go and find all the products that have been recommended, and I'll do the page and get a resource page up.
I thought I better not have a monopoly because the page could just be a link to my website and I could just start selling them. But
yeah,
I think that's a bit cheeky.
Well, how about sponsored by Pond Stones?
Yeah.
There you go. I'll send you the invoice. Now, just send us the list of the components or the items to go in there, and I will get the page sorted, because we've obviously just added the new Ukraine page for our Ukraine initiative, community initiative. So that's in there.
Is it even...
So that's www.beyondtheboxart.com/Ukraine. And there are another couple of companies which are in the bank on the verge of coming on. One of them, they don't speak any English, but they're going to actually write a script for us to actually read out on their behalf, which is one that John was talking about last week. So it's going to be a resource for them as well. But yeah, we'll get a resource for them page up on the website as soon as Nevs has finished writing it. And with that, Boulders, what news from your bench?
Hello. Absolutely, Jack Norrie. Same as everybody else, the weather has been absolutely horrendous. Temperatures have gone up to stupid degrees in the man cave, because it's also used during the day as my office for work. So my table mat challenge is not going to be finished because I needed last week to be able to do it. I've not been able to airbrush. I've not been able to do plate 4 to etch because it's been so warm. So I've knocked it on the head. It will be completed because it's naval and it's quite an interesting one. Might as well tell everybody what it is. It is HMS Abercrombie. It's a Roberts monitor. So she's got a really, really flat bottom. The hull looks a bit like a Confederate ironclad, designed to go rivers. And her barbette is actually protruding up from the deck, because the hull is that low, and she is equipped with 2 15-inch guns in the turret. Nice camouflage scheme. It's a different mixture of midnight black blue with light grey, green, and a bit of blue in it. So it's an unusual scheme. It's really nice. So I've shelved that, and I am working on my end of year build, which is quite an interesting kit. It's a Revell kit, and I'm going to build an aircraft.
Woohoo, finally. Back to where you started. Catalina?
No, not Catalina. It's going to be a Jug.
Okay.
Picked it up at Sainsbury for a cracking price. It's the Hasegawa 32nd scale one. There are loads of extras in it. Etch, resin engine, cockpits. I've got the look with the Edward seat belts to do the cockpits. It does have some resin wheels, and obviously while Nevs and Dan have been chatting, I've managed to get one of the hubs off, which is not the flat plate hub. It is the 6-spoke hub, and either the hub isn't circular or the wheel isn't circular.
Okay.
Because there's something not quite right. And when I look at the wheels, there is a bit of a squidge on the wheel.
Is that for weight?
You wouldn't squidge it on the hub. It's the hub that is slightly off.
Off. Okay. Heavy landing.
And I don't know who's they're in a light yellow resin.
That sounds very Barracuda.
But I don't know, because they were just in a bag. I've got no label to see.
Isn't that CMK resin? CMK resin's a bit like that. It can...
That's true, that is, and yeah. Is it a bubble top or a razorback?
Bubble top. It is the most famous P47, I think, ever, which is Gabreski.
Gabreski from Halesworth.
Yeah. So I can either do Gabreski's with his lovely grey and obscure green camouflage pattern with the red cowl, or I can do a bare metal one, which is from the 353rd Fighter Squadron, 354th Fighter Group, and that is the 9th Air Force, and that's Major Glenn T. Eagleston, and that was France, early 45. and that's got a yellow cowl with a skull and crossbones on the cowl with an eagle right behind it. So there is that option. Or I'll do the camouflage. So, decisions. The reason I like Gabreski's is because, and the viewers can't see, it's got UD invasion stripes.
Really lovely stuff. Yes, very cool.
And I love a good invasion stripe. So it's top and bottom invasion stripes. I can do it with either top, just having it underneath, or leaving the top ones off. So yeah, I'm gonna contemplate it because it's Azigawa. It falls together. Plastic's superb. I just don't know what I'm going to do about these wheels because they do look a bit off. And I'm just hoping, because I've not checked, if they've got the full circular hub on and not the 6-spoke, because I might check what the blanking plate on the hub is. Most of them did have the blanking plate, so I'll have a look.
Going back to your HMS Abercrombie, have you thought about putting a couple of sailors on the back doing some angling? Then you can have Abercrombie and fish.
Oh, Sat the juggler.
He's here all week. Try the veal.
Yeah, just don't be quitting the day job, Brownie.
No.
To be honest,
Thank you.
it is going to be a seascape, but I'm just going to do it in dock, like Harbour Doff. Because there's a famous picture with a Harbour Doff with the most famous of the Queen Elizabeth battleships, the HMS Barham, which is famous for one reason, because she was the only battleship during the Second World War that was filmed sinking and then detonated. So I'm going to...
It's because it was the only one that was sunk.
Actually, it's not. There was 2. So Queen Elizabeth was actually sunk.
But was raised.
But the British actually played a clever trick. And because she'd sank in shallow water and the Italians were doing air recce, they actually, even though she was like sunk and she was at the bottom of the harbour, they had Royal Navy sailors still doing day-to-day tasks. So whilst they were doing and camouflaging that she'd been sunk to the Italians, there was divers underneath actually patch plating and everything else to refloat her. And then obviously she was then sent to the US to be refitted.
Okay.
So a bit of useless information for you.
Every little bit of information is a little nugget we didn't know before. So, have you been spending any cash?
Not on models, no. Other things, yeah, but not on models.
On the fish?
Another expensive hobby.
Yes, you said last time. Okay. You are looking a bit coy about that.
Jesus.
Oh, I'm on fire this evening.
It's a bit, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, with that, I think we'll actually take a short break and we'll have our first guest slot talking about Scale Scotland after we come back.
Are you looking for top quality paints for your next project? Then look no further than the Scale Modeler Supply. Hi, I'm Scott, and as a passionate modeler myself, I've spent years creating the SMS product range, designing them specifically with a scale modeler in mind. We've worked extensively to develop our acrylic lacquer paint range to not only be airbrush ready straight out of the bottle, but also to be very easy to use so that anyone of any skill level can create professional results with minimal effort. Just give the bottle a good shake, pour into your airbrush and spray at 15 psi. So dive into your next project with confidence, knowing that you're backed by one of the finest hobby paints on the market. Head over to our website scalemodeler.com.au to check out our full range and to find your closest retailer.
So we are joined by Andy Canning from Scale Scotland, Edinburgh, with the upcoming show this September. Andy, welcome to the show.
Morning, how are you?
I'm not bad, yourself?
Yeah, we're all good.
Scale Scotland built a fantastic reputation over the years. Can you tell us a little about the history of the show and how it's grown and what makes it one of the UK's premier modelling events?
Thank you for the compliment. It was 4 or 5 of the club members in Edinburgh. We have a couple of model clubs in Edinburgh. The Lothian Modelers Club and IPMS Edinburgh all meet on the same evening. We used to go to various shows up and down the country, and then we kind of realised Edinburgh didn't have a show and hadn't had a show for a long time. So we got together and we decided we wanted to put on a show. So we paused, and then for the first year, we went to half a dozen 7, 8 shows up and down the country, from the Nationals in Telford, Darlington, the Northern Model Show, Newcastle, Glasgow, Aberdeen, everywhere. And all we did, other than enjoy ourselves at the show, have a good time, was note down what we liked and what we didn't like. And then try to put all the things that we liked together and look at what we would want in a show. And, that would be enough space to walk around, great trade, because we believe a lot of people come for the trade, what's going to be there. So there's no point in having 10 box pushers. You want to have 2 tops, and you want to have other people, other things there. We did that. Our first show was 2015. We did that at the Hilton Airport Hotel in Edinburgh, and it was quite bitty in sort of various rooms on the ground floor at the Hilton. But we did that for 2 or 3 years there. Learned every year in terms of treat the trade correctly, be square with them. There are a lot of shows who just treat them as cash cows, and we don't. We look after them to our best of our ability. That probably shows in one of my biggest mistakes in the first show. So go back to 2015. We're in the midst of organising the show. We get to the day of the show. We've been all in at 7 a.m, getting things set up. 8:30, I decide I'm hungry. So I say to the lad who's helping us at the hotel, any chance of some bacon rolls? We get a dozen bacon rolls for the boys. He's like, no problem at all, leave that with me. Off he goes. 10 minutes later, comes back with a tray of bacon rolls. And you could see people's faces light up. All the trays. So I was actually, you know what? Go and get me 50. We'll cover the cost. And so we got the bacon rolls out to all the trade. The goodwill that bought us was unbelievable. So much. If we don't do bacon rolls now, or sliced sausage, square sausage, Scottish sausage, people are asking questions. So we've gone out of our way in that respect. We'll look after the trade. We've tried to keep the gate relatively sensible. Under 16s are free. And my mum back in the day did question me and say, well, hang on, OEs should be free. I was like, Mum, if OEs were free, we wouldn't have any money coming in at the gate. It's an old hobby. We need to encourage, the old guys are building models. It's the young people we need to encourage in. We actively reached out to Air Cadets, Army Cadets, all this kind of thing, just to try and get people coming through the door, because the more people we believed we could put across the club stands, the trade stands, the competition, the more it would help us. The last few years, Wonderland in Edinburgh, model shop where I used to work a long time ago, have been terrific with us. Ian gives us a couple of 100 free kits for every show, and his only mandate behind it is it goes to the juniors. He's a switched on guy, good businessman, and the ethos was very simple. If the kid buys the kit or has the kit, he'll need glue and paint. So the chances are and so it's just common sense, like link selling. So it's worked well. We ask for feedback from the clubs in the trade at each show, and have always done, and we've tried to act on it. So it could be something about space between the tables, space behind the tables, especially with the clubs when they want enough space to sit and to be able to spread out. Table depth, size. We looked at the shows, especially in Europe, who I believe lead the way with shows. Moson K, SMK, these are unbelievable shows. And one thing we picked up was table heights. You've been to a show, Paul, as I have, and you're sort of bending over the table to look at a model, and it can be, if you've got the model on the table, you're looking at that person going, don't touch my model, your bag swings. So we put 12-inch risers on top of the tables. Good pal of mine, one of our big sponsors, Sharkey Group in Edinburgh, made us the MDF risers and tabletops. So those go on. So now the tables are standard 6-foot chest with that extra 18 inches of height. So now you can look without having to bend over. And it sounds something daft, and it wasn't something we invented. We saw it at another show. That's a great idea. We can use that. We can make that work for us. And that's all we've ever tried to do. Just make it a show that we'd want to go to. And the ethos was as simple as that.
And you've got the other advantage with the older audience. If they bend down, there's a good chance they're not going to get back up again.
There's that as well, yes. And then we're phoning paramedics.
No, you raise an interesting point of encouraging the youth to actually come to the show. Do you have anything like a Gunpla build area or things of that nature?
We've done it a couple of times. It does tend to be quite labour intensive in that there's not many of us who run the show, and it needs at least 2 people on that sensibly, especially when you have under 16s. There are regulations involved there. So being very honest, we've stepped away from that the last few years. It is something we're going to look at again, but I don't know if it's something we'll follow through on.
Okay, it might be worth having a chat with the guys from Gunpla UK.
Okay.
They may be interested in doing something along those lines with you.
Okay, I'll get no details from you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so for anyone who's never been to Scale Scotland before, can you give us the headline details? When and where is the show taking place this year? And the parking arrangements for visitors?
Okay, parking's free. That's something we'd always wanted to make sure. That there are lots of shows, or there have been some shows, in town centres and that. And if you can't park, I think it puts so many people off. And if you can keep costs down for people, if there's more money in their pockets, then naturally they're going to go to, that show where they've got more money to spend. The show's at Murrayfield Stadium. So other than the free parking, you can drive there. You can get the tram there. There's literally, it's so easy to get to. It's scary. It's not city centre. It's kind of midwest of Edinburgh, if you like, but very iconic, home of Scottish rugby. And it's got a great size for us. I guess it's one caveat is its first floor, but Murrayfield have been so good with us in terms of organisation. They put so much into it and help us, and let us use the freight elevators to help both the club's set up and the trade set up, so that they do look after us specifically well. The cost to come in is £10 flat, and that's you in all day. You can dip in, dip out, you get a wristband. We've done a little bit with Murrayfield before with if there's not rugby happening and the team aren't training, you can sometimes get out to see pitch in the stadium, and it's a pretty special place. If you're a Scottish rugby fan especially, we don't usually have lots to cheer about, but the venue's pretty tasty.
Okay. And what clubs or SIGs have you got coming to the show this year?
All sorts. A lot of the Scottish clubs come down. Still, my favourite is the 144 guys. The display they put on every year with those aircraft and the work that goes into them, I think are terrific. In terms of other clubs, usually a fair few from the north of England and some south, but we do understand it's a cost in terms of people travelling up. Invariably, they're going to stay over, or to do it sensibly at our age, you want to stay over. You don't want to be doing a 4-hour drive, an all-day show, then a 4-hour drive home. That's a fairly lengthy day. And then in terms of trade, we're very well supported, again, because we've gone out of our way to look after them. So Wonderland, who are one of our big sponsors, the guys at Air and AFM, they're always up with us. And we have a variety of 2 box pushers, Wonderland being one. And then what we've tried to do is make sure that no trader is overrepresented in terms of what he does. So if there's a guy selling tools, and let's say we get an approach from another guy selling tools, if we think they're both viable, we put them at opposite ends of the hall. So they get as much of a chance, and people have to walk around. Justin's been with us from the get-go as well. Great supporter of the show, and always puts on a hell of a nice display, and I always end up spending a fortune on books as usual. So yeah, we've kind of put a lot of thought. Again, what would we want to see at a show? And it's not just 10 box pushers in a row, because then there's not enough difference of sparkle there. The guys at Mitch's Miniatures, their busts and stuff always seem to go well. They're right good lads. Ross Mitchell and his family. Alan Jameson, so it's AMM, he's a Glasgow store, great supporter of the show. He's sponsoring the competition this year. He's very, very well tied in with AK. So, we have some people coming up who'll do demonstrations, that sort of thing. And AK have worked with us in the past and continue as well. So we've tried to be as commercially aware as in make the show financially viable, so it perpetuates itself each year, and friendly enough as well that people want to come. because, a few model shows have kind of disappeared because they haven't been able to maintain venue costs have got too expensive for them. And it's hard, the pressure to put that on, and, it's got to fund itself.
Yeah, makes sense. So is this a IMS event or is it?
No, it's an independent model show. So we underwrite it. We have our own public liability insurance. We've done everything as an IPMS show would in that respect. But what we wanted to do, again, we listened to feedback. So the competition, the criteria and the classes morph every year. If we see a surge in figures, then we'll open up that class to have more sections, if it's sizes or periods or whatever. Or if we see less armour going in, then we'll bring that down a little bit. Again, it's on feedback. Yourself, again, at a show, judging at every show can be interesting. You different aspects to judge from, different criteria. There's no right, there's no wrong. And my friends George and Phil, who run the competition along with Colin and Bart, as far as I'm concerned, what they say goes. So if they're looking at other shows, they're looking at our show, and they're going to change the criteria, and we all talk it through. They're the ones at the front of it. They're the ones signing the models in. They're the ones explaining everything. And we've tried to keep it relatively simple. So you could go to the Nationals in Telford, and it used to be armour, which is what I do, would be everything from out of the box, detailed, extensively detailed, and then scratch building. And I think even they've brought those criteria into 2 classes now versus having 4. It's just, if there's a lack of people doing it, it makes it difficult when there's one model in a class, and it then puts pressure on the judges, because this is where the judging thing people's opinions can vary, and one model, what should it win? And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because, everyone's got an opinion on it. But I understand everyone's opinion, and it's their opinion. It's not right or wrong.
Okay, so you've obviously mentioned you've got a competition there. Are there any presentations or any special events that take part during the day?
Yes, so the competition is fairly straightforward. It'll be gold, silver, bronze. There will be the medals for each model as they're awarded by the judges when it's closed for judging are laid beside the model, so it's fairly obvious who's won. There will be several trophies on the day. Those are then presented at a ceremony. I guess it is a ceremony at the end. Relatively straightforward, nice and simple, and just kept, with a sort of minimum of fuss. As I said, Wonderland will end up sponsoring a couple of classes, as they always do. Usually the junior, always put a nice package of, a big Reveille craft kit or something like that. They get some bang for the buck. Alan at AMS from Glasgow, he'll put a package together as he usually does. The guys at Eastwick Modeler and Air Magazine will have some books and stuff that they'll do their editors awards. So Mark and David will go and look at what they think wins. Ian Barraclough from the Tank, if you've seen his stuff on Facebook, it's the Tank Room. Guys on Facebook are called. Ian will put something on, usually for best armour, best weathered, something along those lines. And then the guys that we have doing the demos. So Lester Plaskett's usually up with us, along with Steve Mitten, both top modelers. Lester, what a character. I love him to bits. And what an unbelievable modeler. His weatherings, I sit watching him doing it, and I'm going, you're a bugger. You're making this look so flipping simple. Yet when I go back home, it starts going everywhere. But we've actually run a couple of demo days with Lester separate from the show, where he's come up. We've organised a venue through my work, and we've had 30 or 40 of us as a workshop with Lester. And he's a terrific teacher because he likes imparting his knowledge. He's not one of these guys who keeps his arm around it, doesn't tell you what he does, and makes it a big secret. He shows you each and every stage, and every time all of us get that little bit of revelation. And as you know, seeing something done in front of you, actually demonstrated, magazines are great, I buy enough of them, but seeing it physically done, that's what does it for me. And Lester's there all day, working away, beavering away, along with Steve. Steve obviously does those strange models, aircraft. really weird things. You know, if it's not got wheels and tracks, I don't know, I'm just not there.
And that ends the own conversation.
So Steve works really well there, and we've actually got a couple of guys from AK coming over this year as well, along with Leicester. So we've had to expand our demo section, which I'm delighted to have the product, but made a bit of an adjustment in terms of the top end of one of the halls. So Leicester will have even more space along with the guys from AK and Steve to help people. You know, that was the original idea. We've also, in previous years, when Christoph Kulinix used to work with AK, Christoph's been over a few times. His friend Herman, who's the quietest, gentlest, loveliest guy, and one of the most unassuming guys you'll ever meet, and what an unbelievable modeler he is. Adam Weller's been over a couple of years. He's a top lad, obviously a very, very good modeler as well. And the key to all those guys for us was the intros we got from Alan Jameson and David Parker. These were the friends of these guys, and they got us the intros, and they were more than happy to come and work with us. And I think because we feed them well, a munchie box, which is chips, kebabs, and all sorts of nonsense, they're delighted to come back each year. We're fortunate in that respect because we've tried to be square from the get-go. People want to come to the show and work with us.
Fair enough. And does the munchie box include a deep-fried Mars bar?
It can do. It's an added extra. There is a cost to that, though. Usually a penny.
Gotcha. Okay, so what is the date for the show?
5th of September, Saturday the 5th of September.
Just a one-day show?
One day. We've deliberately kept it a one day. We've looked and talked about expanding it, but we're content that we can make it work in one day and not have that hangover feeling that you can see at some shows that the second day is almost an afterthought, and we desperately wanted to avoid that.
Okay, and this may sound like a really silly question, but for those that with electric cars these days, have you got the ability to charge at your venue?
Murrayfield has charging points.
Okay, so finally, if someone is still undecided about making the trip up north, what's your message to them? Why should people put Scale Scotland in the diary and head north for the promises of a fantastic weekend of scale modelling?
Ask around, go into forums, speak to the clubs, if you're part of a club or know the clubs that have come up, and ask how we treat people. Ask how square we are. We have a competition which every year seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger. If I recall correctly, we were north of 400 entries last year. We run at 30 to 35 clubs. There's 20 trade coming in. There's lots of space. You can park for free. If you're very clever and have a significant other, Edinburgh's a great city. And the it's just off city centre, so you can park. He, she, they can jump on a tram, go into the city centre, have a good look around, go and see things while you're looking at plastic things with your holy jumper on. There's everything to do, so you're catered for. We've got a couple friend of ours at Red Zebra, a great couple that come join us every year, and they make a weekend of it. Similarly, Hawk Miniatures. I know they came up, they hired a camper, and it's part of their holiday. And that's the trade thinking about it. So, it's a good show. It's not the biggest. It's never wanted to be the biggest. We've just tried to be a quality show. I think one of the things, stepping back a little bit, that we looked at, if you'd go to a model show and you see trestle tables and it just looked a bit, second hand. So we decided we would cover all the trestle tables, whether it's club or trade, in white linen. And the difference that made walking in, you walked in and it's all white and nicely presented. We went to another contact of mine and had signs made that we were able to hang up. These venues have relatively low ceilings, sort of spring-loaded signs. So when you go in and you're looking for a trader, all you've got to do is look up, because every one of them has a sign above their spot. And it was just those little things that we saw elsewhere at other shows that we've brought all together. And it's just to give it that feeling of professionalism and quality.
Andy, thank you very much for your time. It sounds like a fantastic show, and I'm just desperately looking at my diary to see if I can actually make it up there this year. Fingers crossed, I will try and make the journey north of the border.
You do that and you'll be well looked after.
Fantastic. Andy, thank you very much. I hope to speak to you again soon. And if not, I'll see you at Telford if it all goes pear-shaped for the event for myself.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, cheers.
Fishkop Models, elevating scale modeling to an art form. Experience highly detailed 3D printed upgrade parts that bring true authenticity to your builds. Creators of the acclaimed Rolls-Royce Merlin engine set for both the Kotari Spitfire and the Dambusters set for the Border Models Avro Lancaster. For bespoke design and printing, our service is as precise as it is personal, all at a reasonable price. Please take a look at our products on www.fishkopcompany.de. Shipping is available for all of our products worldwide.
Beyond the Box Art is proudly supported by Ammo, by Mig Jimenez, the Scale Modelers Supply Guideline Publications, Phase Hanger Resin Accessories, and Fishkop Model Company. It's time once again for the Stash Inflation Report, where manufacturers compete to separate Benchmates from their money, one irresistible release at a time.
Right then, Benchmates, it's time to check the structural integrity of the stash shelves once again, because the manufacturers have been busy announcing yet more aircraft kits that none of us need, but several of us will inevitably buy. And we'll start this week with A&A Models, who have announced the upcoming new tool, Republic XP72 in 48 scale. The XP72 was developed from the P47 Thunderbolt and built around an enormous Pratt & Whitney R4360 Wasp major engine. The aim was to produce a fighter interceptor with considerably better speed and climb performance than the Thunderbolt. The prototype first flew in 44 and reportedly reached around 490 miles per hour during testing. Despite its impressive performance and proposed heavy armaments, the XP-72 never saw production, with the arrival of the jet aircraft and the approaching end of the Second World War effectively bringing the development to an end. A&A Models will be releasing these kits in two separate boxings. Kit number 4816 will feature 4-bladed propeller version, while kit number 4817 will represent the aircraft fitted with the contra-rotated propeller arrangement. At the moment, further details of the kits and photographs of the contents have yet to be released, but it's certainly an interesting choice of subject and another welcome addition for anyone with an interest in experimental American aircraft. Moving on, Andrami Models have announced an absolute avalanche of new aircraft kits across 3 different scales. Starting in 1 to 72nd scale, we have 2 versions of the Curtiss SB-2C Helldiver. There is the SB-2C3 Helldiver, followed by the later SB-2C4. Also joining the 72nd ranges is the de Havilland Sea Vampire F-20 and the Curtiss A25A5 CS Shrike. Moving considerably upwards into the 32nd scale, Drami Models have announced no fewer than 4 different versions of the BF-110. These are the BF-110C7, the D3, and the rather distinctive 110 D1/R1 Deckelback, and finally the BF-110 D/E boxing. And rounding out the announcements from Drami Model is another 32nd Luftwaffe subject in the form of the Messerschmitt BF-109 E4B. So plenty coming from Drami Model, particularly if your interests lie with Second World War aircraft in either 72nd or 32nd scale. Next up, Fly Models return with another 32nd Hawker Hurricane, this time with the Mark IV. The kit comes with particularly interesting and varied selection marking options. These include KZ-188, aircraft C of number 6 Squadron, operating from Prikos in Yugoslavia in January 1945. There's PB-173, an RAF aircraft based at Boscombe Down in 42. LF-468, aircraft F of number 351 at Yugoslav Squadron in 45. KZ-802 of number 42 Squadron in RAF Burma in July 44. KZ-994 of number 43 Squadron RAF, also operating in Burma, this time during July 45. There's KW-908 in the Argentinian Air Force Services from 1948. And finally, KZ-193, representing an aircraft used for prototype trials at Boscombe Down in 43. There is an excellent spread of marking options covering RAF, Yugoslav and Argentinian service, and should offer plenty of choices for anyone adding a 1 to 30-second Hurricane Mark IV to the collection. Moving on to A model, and we now have 3 new Antonov releases. First off is the 1 to 144 scale Antonov AN74TK300D cargo aircraft. That's followed by the 144 scale Antonov AN72P in the markings of the National Guard of Ukraine. And finally moving up to scale 172nd, there is an Antonov AN28 drone killer. So 3 more unusual subjects from A model, and certainly something a little different from the seemingly endless processes of Spitfires, Messerschmitts and Mustangs. Next, Avis models are releasing a Messerschmitt M23B in 72nd scale. It's a considerably smaller and more delicate subject than some of other releases this week, and should appeal to modelers interested in interwar and civil aviation. So better scale models are also bringing us something unusual, with the Swedish Sommelisa 01 coming in 48 scale. Again, it's not exactly an aircraft that appears regular in mainstream kit catalogues, so this should be an interesting release for anyone looking for something a little more obscure for the display cabinet. Moving back to rather more familiar territory, Corvette are releasing 2 Orca Hurricanes in 32nd scale. The first is the Orca Hurricane Mark II-A, followed by the Hurricane Mark II-B. According to Scalemates, these kits are based on the latest Revell Hurricane tooling, but include additional new parts. So if you're a fan of the recent Revell Hurricane kits like I am, these are new releases could offer some interesting additional options. And finally this week, Dogfighter models are clearly determined to make sure nobody can complain that their preferred scale has been overlooked. They are releasing both early and late versions of the MiG-3 across 3 different scales. The MiG-3 early will be available in 1 to 48, 32nd scale and 35th scale. And the exact same selection will be available for the MiG-3 late, again in 48th, 32nd and 35th. So that's 6 MiG-3 releases covering 2 versions and 3 scales. And that brings us to the end of this week's aviation releases. We've had experimental American fighters, Helldivers, Sea Vampires, BF-110s, BF-109s, Hurricanes, Antonovs, obscure interwar aircraft, and enough MiG-3s to ensure that virtually anyone can find one in their preferred scale. Which means my work here is done. The stash shelves are under renewed pressure, and it's time to hand things over to Dan to find out what's been happening and considerably muddier and more heavily armed world of AFVs.
Thanks, Boulders. Well, from aircraft that were designed to leave the ground, we move on to the altogether more sensible world of things that stay firmly attached to it. And Masterbox have certainly been busy, with 4 new releases due at the end of the month covering warriors separated by more than 2,000 years of history. We'll start with the most recent of those subjects and a new addition to Masterbox's established First World War range. Kit number 35256 is a 1/35th scale figure and diorama set depicting a squad of German soldiers preparing to leave the relative safety of a trench. The scene captures the soldiers immediately before an attack or trench raid, and one of the figures carrying a cluster of stick grenades. What makes this release particularly interesting is that Masterbox haven't simply provided the figures. Inside the box there are 4 plastic sprues, one containing the figures themselves, another provides the weapons and equipment, while the remaining sprues contain the components needed to construct the trench section. That gives the modeler several options. You could build the content straight from the box as a complete standalone vignette, use the figures separately, or incorporate the entire scene into a considerably larger First World War diorama. The inclusion of the trench components is particularly useful as it provides the modeler with the foundations of a scene without having to build the entire setting from scratch. As we've come to expect from Masterbox, the figures detailed uniforms, equipment and weapons, with the poses designed to work together to create a convincing sense of movement and anticipation. From the trenches of the First World War, we're now heading considerably further back in history with 3 new additions to Masterbox's ongoing Greco-Persian Wars series. First is kit number 32015, the Persian Heavy Infantryman. This is kit number 5 in the Greco-Persian Wars series and provides a single 1/32nd scale figure depicting a heavily armed Persian warrior. The figure is posed in an active combat stance and is shown using a bow. As with the other releases in the series, the kit has been designed to work in two different ways. It can be built, painted and displayed as an individual figure, or combined with other kits from the range to create a much larger battle scene. That modular approach appears to be an important part of Masterbox's plans for the series, allowing modelers to gradually build up a collection of individual figures before bringing them together in a much larger diorama. The active pose of the Persian infantryman should also help create a sense of movement when combined with the other figures in the range. Next is kit number 32016. The kit number 6 in the series, featuring a Greek peltast. Again, this is a single 1/32nd scale figure. What makes this particular release interesting is the equipment carried by the warrior. Rather than depicting a highly equipped skirmisher normally associated with the peltast, this figure represents a considerably more experienced and successful soldier. He's now wearing more extensive protective equipment, reflecting a veteran warrior who has acquired better armour and equipment through his military service. That should make for a particularly interesting painting project with plenty of variation available across the clothing, armour, weapons and equipment. Once again, the figure has been designed to work either as a standalone model or alongside the previous releases in the Greco-Persian Wars series. And completing this month's trio of ancient warriors is kit number 32020. This is kit number 10 in the series and brings us another Persian heavy infantryman. The single 1/32nd scale figure depicts a heavily armoured Persian archer engaged in combat. The pose and equipment have been specifically designed to complement the figures already available in the range, helping modelers create an increasingly complex battle scenes as the collection continues to expand. As with the other releases, the figure can be equally well built and displayed as a standalone model. So 4 very different releases from Masterbox. The First World War set provides 4 sprues containing figures, weapons, equipment and the trench itself, while the 3 Greco-Persian releases continue the manufacturer's growing collection of individual 1/32nd scale ancient warriors. And from figures, we move on to something with 4 wheels. Ace Model have announced another upcoming release in their 1/72nd scale military vehicle range. Kit number 72471 is the all-wheel drive LKW half-ton GL Type 461. Or those of us who prefer names containing slightly fewer numbers and letters, I know I do, the Mercedes-Benz G-Class W461. The 461 was the more utilitarian approach and professional branch of the G-Class family and was produced between 1992 and 2022. While the better-known W463 increasingly concentrated on the luxury civilian market, the 461 was intended primarily for military, government and heavy-duty industrial use. In military service, the vehicle was sometimes known as the Wolf. The 461 succeeded the original 460 and retained much of the rugged bodywork and simplified interior of its predecessor, while incorporating more modern powertrains. Ace Model's new kit will represent the vehicle in 1/72nd scale and joins the company's already extensive catalogue of smaller scale military and utility vehicles. At the moment, the kit is listed as coming soon, so we're still waiting for more detailed information about the exact contents of the box, marking options and specific configuration represented. But it's another useful modern military vehicle subject, particularly for 1/72nd scale modelers looking to add something a little different to a collection of a contemporary diorama. And that brings us to the end of this week's AFV and figure releases. We've travelled from the trenches of the First World War, back more than 2,000 years to the battlefields of the Greco-Persian Wars, and then returned to the modern era with a German military vehicle, which by the standards of the Stash Inflation Report is actually a remarkably efficient journey through history. And now it's time to leave dry land behind altogether and hand things over to Nevs to see what's been happening in the world of ships, boats and other things designed to remain on the correct side of the waterline. Over to you, Nevs.
Thanks, Dan. This episode's naval releases cover 100 years of naval history, from the dreadnought race in the lead up to the First World War, through to modern guided missile destroyers. More importantly, they're subjects that haven't exactly been overdone, which is always refreshing to see. Let's cast off with Triumph Model, who have announced two particularly interesting releases in 1-700 scale. The first is HMS Unicorn. Unlike the fleet carriers that grab all the headlines, Unicorn spent much of her wartime career as what was known as an aircraft maintenance carrier. Commissioned in 1943, she combined the roles of aircraft transport, repair ship, and operational carrier, providing the British Pacific Fleet with something it desperately needed: a floating workshop capable of repairing and rebuilding damaged aircraft close to the front line. When we think about aircraft carriers, we naturally picture launches and recoveries, but every carrier air group generated an enormous maintenance burden. Aircraft could return with combat damage, engine wear out, or undercarriages collapsing during heavy landings and airframes requiring constant servicing. Rather than sending damaged aircraft all the way back to Britain, Unicorn could repair them in theatre, returning valuable aircraft to service in days rather than months. She proved particularly valuable during operations against Japan in 1945, supporting the British Pacific Fleet alongside the larger fleet carriers. Triumph's kit combines an injection moulded hull with modular 3D printed resin components and photo-etched details, giving modelers the best of several manufacturing technologies. At this stage, we don't yet know how much of the hangar deck will be represented internally, but even as a full hull display piece, HMS Unicorn fills a significant gap in Royal Navy collections. For fleet air arm enthusiasts, she's been along. Staying with Triumph, but moving back almost 30 years, we come to the German battlecruiser, SMS Moltke. This one's currently still at the CAD stage, with release expected during 2027. Moltke represents one of Imperial Germany's most important capital ships. Launched in 1910, she formed part of Kaiser Wilhelm II's ambitious naval expansion programme under Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz. Britain's revolutionary HMS Dreadnought had rendered virtually every existing battleship obsolete overnight, and Germany responded by rapidly building a fleet capable of challenging Royal Naval supremacy in the North Sea. Battlecruisers like Moltke sacrificed some armour protection in exchange for greater speed whilst retaining battleship-sized guns. Moltke saw extensive service throughout the First World War, participating in raids on the British coast, such as the Battle of Dogger Bank and, most famously, the Battle of Jutland in 1916. Remarkably, despite receiving numerous heavy shell hits during her career, she survived the war and was eventually scuttled at Scapa Flow in 1919 by her own crew to prevent the German fleet being divided amongst the victorious Allies. For anyone interested in the Kaiserliche Marine, this promises to be a very welcome addition. Moving forward into the interwar period, Trumpeter are finally releasing USS Langley, CV-1, in 1-700 scale. Now, this is a genuinely historic ship. Before there were Essex-class carriers, before the Enterprise became famous in the Pacific, there was Langley. Originally built as the collier USS Jupiter, she was converted during the early 1920s into America's very first aircraft carrier. Looking at photographs today, she appears almost experimental, and in many ways she was. Her full-length wooden flight deck sat atop what was unmistakably a converted cargo ship, complete with an unusual appearance, that reflected just how new carrier aviation still was. Everything about Langley represented experimentation. Many of the procedures that later became standard aboard the Yorktowns and the Essexes were first tested aboard Langley. Although she had been converted into a seaplane tender by the time America entered the Second World War, her contribution to naval aviation simply cannot be overstated. Trumpeter's new tooling captures Langley in her aircraft carrier configuration, allowing modelers to recreate the pioneering years of carrier aviation. Release is expected soon, with pre-orders already starting for what looks to be a very affordable CV1. 3D Wild and Model Fun Shipyard have released two giants from the Battle of Jutland. The first is Britain's famous battlecruiser HMS Lion. Lion served as Admiral Sir David Beattie's flagship and became one of the most recognisable Royal Navy warships of the Great War. During the Battle of Dogger Bank in 1915, she suffered significant damage but survived. And at Jutland the following year, she narrowly escaped catastrophe when a German shell penetrated one of her gun turrets. And with the quick actions of Royal Marines Major Francis Harvey, who ordered the magazine flooded despite being mortally wounded, prevented an explosion similar to those that crippled HMS Queen Mary and HMS Invincible. His actions undoubtedly saved the ship and earned him a posthumous Victoria Cross. The companion release is SMS Friedrich der Grosse, one of Germany's Kaiser-class dreadnoughts. Named after Frederick the Great, she served as the flagship of the High Seas Fleet for much of the war and took part in every major fleet operation, including Jutland. Both models are produced as highly detailed 1 to 350th scale 3D printed resin kits, complete with photo-etched railings, offering experienced ship modelers an excellent foundation for museum quality builds. Moving into the present day, I Love Kit continue to expand their impressive 1 to 200 scale Arleigh class destroyer series with USS Michael Murphy, DDG 112. Named after Lieutenant Michael P. Murphy, a United States hero in Operation Red Wings in Afghanistan, the ship honors one of the United States Navy's most respected and modern heroes, and the first Navy sailor to have been awarded the Medal of Honor since the Vietnam War. Commissioned in 2012 and based at Pearl Harbor, USS Michael Murphy represents the continuing evolution of the Arleigh Burke design. Although the basic class dates back to the late 1980s, continual upgrades have kept these destroyers amongst the most capable surface combatants anywhere in the world. Designed around the Aegis combat system and equipped for anti-air, anti-submarine and anti-surface warfare, the class has become the backbone of the modern US Navy. Earlier this year, DDG-112 participated in mine-clearing operations within the Strait of Hormuz, highlighting how these ships continue to undertake real-world operations in some of the world's most strategically important waterways. For modelers, the large 1 to 200 scale provides enormous scope for additional detailing, lighting, and aftermarket upgrades. And speaking of aftermarket, if you thought Trumpeter's already impressive 1 to 200 USS Fletcher couldn't possibly be improved, Detail Up Mania would respectfully disagree. Their latest enhancement set is remarkably comprehensive. It replaces large sections of the superstructure with finely printed components, adding completely new gun turrets, torpedo tubes, funnels, and a substantial quantity of photo-etched detail. Now, the Fletcher class needs very little introduction. With 175 ships built, they became the most successful and numerous destroyer class ever built for the United States Navy. They fought in every major theatre of the Second World War, escorting carrier task forces, bombarding shore positions, and hunting submarines across both the Atlantic and the Pacific. Many continued serving for decades after the war with Allied navies around the world. It's little wonder they remain one of the most popular naval subjects in our hobby. Upgrade sets like this allow experienced modelers to push these already excellent kits to an entirely new level of realism. Looking across this episode's naval releases, they're all reminders that naval history is far richer than simple battleships trading broadsides. Each represents a significant step in the evolution of naval warfare and tells a different chapter in the story of how fleets adapted to changing technology across more than a century. Whether your interests lie in the Grey Giant of Jutland, the pioneering days of naval aviation, or today's guided missile destroyers, there's certainly plenty here to tempt ship modelers over the coming months. Now then, we've sailed from Scapa Flow to Pearl Harbor and covered well over 100 years of naval history. It's time to leave the oceans behind and head somewhere a little more futuristic. Shane has giant robots, transforming machines, and enough articulated joints to keep every engineering student happy. Shane, over to you.
Thanks, Nevs. Now then, Benchmates, if you're one of our listeners who usually thinks, I'll pop and make a brew while Shane talks about giant robots, stick with me for a few minutes. One of the great things about the hobby today is that the boundaries between traditional scale modelling and science fiction modelling are becoming increasingly blurred. The engineering, moulding quality, finishing techniques found in these modern mecha kits are genuinely remarkable, and many scale modelers are discovering that building something completely different every now and then is a fantastic way to recharge the modelling batteries. This episode's releases certainly demonstrate just how diverse the genre has become, and we'll begin with Big Firebird Build, who have announced the impressive 1/60th Future Vanguard, Skull, Bird and Barza. Now, unlike Gundam, this isn't based on a 40-year-old television franchise. Instead, it's taken from the modern Chinese science fiction series Bird Binary Shade, reflecting on just how rapidly China's own mecha industry has developed over the last decade. The kit includes two separate articulated machines, the sleek, white Skullbird and its darker companion Barza. On their own, they're impressive enough, but the real attraction is that the two of these combine into a single, much larger combat machine, whilst also incorporating the heavy armoured motorcycle transformation. That's when manufacturers like Big Firebird are really beginning to make a name for themselves. For around £30, this looks to offer exceptional value, particularly when you consider that you're effectively getting two complete mechas plus the combined configuration in one box. This expected in September. Next up is something that many listeners may recognise, Ultra Magnus. Dayusha have announced a snap-fit model based on the character's appearance in the 2018 Transformers Bumblebee film. Now, for those of us of a certain age, Transformers probably conjures up memories of a Saturday morning. What many people perhaps don't realise is that Transformers remains one of the world's biggest toy entertaining franchises, continually reinventing itself for new generations through comics, animated series, feature films, and increasingly sophisticated model kits. The kit itself has been designed with newcomers very much in mind. It's a straightforward, snap-fit build with excellent articulation, movie-accurate armour, an iron buster, display stand, and pre-coloured parts, making it an ideal introduction for anyone curious about branching into sci-fi fiction modelling. Expected during August, retailing for approximately £25. Moving on to Motor Nuclear. Their latest release is the SP-XH-02 Jingzhou class Wensong. Now, if you've followed Motor Nuclear over recent years, you'll know they're famous for producing enormous kits in roughly 1/72nd scale, packed with metal parts, die-cast components, and astonishing articulation. This release, however, represents something rather different. Standing at approximately 16.5 centimeters, it's considerably more compact, making it easier to display whilst retaining all the detail and mechanical complexity the company has become known for. The design itself draws heavily from the Chinese mythology, blending futuristic armour with historic influences. The name Wen Song comes from one of the great military figures of Chinese folklore, giving the model an identity that extends well beyond simply being another robot. It's a fascinating fusion of ancient culture and modern industrial design. Look for it in August for around £40. From original designs to one of the most celebrated anniversaries in anime history. This year marks the 40th anniversary of Mobile Suit Zeta. First broadcast in '85, Zeta Gundam fundamentally changed the direction of the Gundam franchise. Whilst the original Mobile Suit Gundam introduced audiences to the concept of the real robot, many fans consider it to be one of the finest entries in the entire Gundam universe. To celebrate the anniversary, Bandai are reissuing the Robot Damaship RX-17A Gundam Mark II Org version, which was originally released in 2024. This special anniversary edition gives newer collectors another opportunity to obtain one of the line's standout figures without paying influence to second-hand prices. The Gundam Mark II occupies an important place in Gundam history. Although it appears visually similar to the RX-70A, beneath the armour it represents a significant technological leap forward, influencing almost every mobile suit that followed during this Universe Century timeline. Collectors can expect the usual exceptional articulation and finish that we've come to expect from Bandai's premium robot Damashi range. The release is expected during November, and that is approximately £45. The flagship anniversary release, however, is undoubtedly the Robot Spirit's MSZ-006 Z Gundam. Within the Gundam universe, the Z Gundam represents one of the most advanced transformable mobile suits ever developed. Its ability to convert between humanoid combat and high-speed wave rider. Expect superb articulation, fateful proportions, and the engineering quality that has made Robot Spirits one of the benchmark action figure ranges within the hobby. Collectors should look out for its release in December, and pricing is around £55. One thing that's become increasingly apparent over recent years is just how much influence science fiction modelling is having across the hobby as a whole. Many of the techniques first popularised by the Gundam builders, colour modulation, metallic finishes, fluorescent effects, precision masking, and advanced weathering, all now commonplace in aircraft, armour, and ship models. Likewise, scale modelers are increasingly bringing traditional finishing techniques into the mecha world, creating machines that look genuinely operational rather than the factory flesh. It's a wonderful example of how different parts of the hobby are learning from one another. And whether your passion is Spitfires, Sherman tanks, destroyers, or giant robots, we're all ultimately doing exactly the same thing. Building models, learning new skills, and hopefully enjoying a few hours of peace and quiet on the workbench. Well, that wraps up another edition of the Stash Inflation Report. But would love to hear which of the releases has caught your eyes over the last fortnight. Whatever your modelling interests, there's certainly no shortage of exciting projects on the horizon. Now, before we move into today's main feature, we'd like to take a moment to thank the companies whose support helps continue bringing Beyond the Box Art to our benchmates in more than 80 countries around the world. So, here's a few words from some of our amazing partners.
It's time for the Guideline Publications monthly magazine update with what's coming up in the August mags with John Tabiner.
Hello Benchmates, John Tabiner here from Guideline Publications with a run-through of what you can find in the latest editions of our magazines. So, let's kick off with Military Modelcraft International. That's issue 358, the August 2026 publication. Let's start with the cover feature this month is by Rob Rivietto. It's the Ryefield Models 135th scale JS2 Soviet tank 1944 production, with a lot of Ryefield's update sets added. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's presented on the cover unpainted, so you can see all the various elements that have gone into it. And by the looks of it, there are more upgrades on that kit than there is kit. So well worth a read for that alone, in fact, because it's one of Rob's favourite models, one of his favourite tanks. So in the rest of the magazine, after the usual look at new releases and forthcoming releases, we move on to Fabrizio Pincelli, who builds Trumpeter's 135th T-72B1 as an abandoned tank. That's a lovely piece of modelling. Fabrizio hasn't been in the magazine for a while, so it's great to see him back. Harvey Lowe makes an appearance next. Not only does he have an interview later in the magazine, he's very well known, well regarded and well loved Canadian modeller who builds a range of subjects over a range of scales. He has a build of a 3D printed 135th scale Meyer R80 heavy trailer, which is a bit of fantastic looking engineering. German, I think, used to transport tanks, etc. Again, finished in Harvey's magnificent style. The Armour in Profile feature this month is a report on the Combined Resolve 26 exercise held earlier this year in southern Germany. Walter Blum reports on the 1st Armoured Brigade's combat team, the Devil Brigade, and their operations during these important combined Allied exercises. Speaking of American armour, Matt Edwards gives us an urban combat M1A1 Abrams in Iraq for the next feature. And after Harvey's interview, Nicholas Vasseur returns with a build of the Trumpeter 172nd scale Panzer 38T. And that, of course, was the Czech light tank that the Germans used in very large numbers early in the war before using the chassis for a variety of self-propelled guns and tank hunters. We continue the theme with more unusual German heavy armour from World War II next. Ramon Segarra builds the Sture Emil, the Trumpeter 135th scale kit, if I have that correct. That was a German self-propelled gun using the 128mm anti-aircraft artillery piece bolted onto one of the rejected chassis for the Tiger tank. That's a tremendous piece of painting and finishing. Very nice kind of rain-stained, rusty paintwork on there, and the brutal form of this beast is very well captured by Ramon. That's lovely bit of modelling. John Hales returns with his run through some of Colonel Crichton Abrams' most well-known vehicles. This is Thunderbolt 5, an M4 Sherman, 135th scale, which the famous Colonel piloted and commanded during the Normandy breakout. So all fans of Shermans will be very interested in seeing how that comes out, and that looks great. There's a roundup of the latest military books to finish off, followed by, of course, what you can expect in the next issue. And speaking of issues, the best way to get hold of MMI is to subscribe, especially with the news that TG Jones, that's the ex-Smiths stores, will be closing around 150 of their news agents across the UK. If you head over to guidelinepublications.co.uk, take out a subscription, then a copy of your favourite AFV modelling magazine will land gracefully on your doormat through the letterbox the day before it hits the newsstands, which in the case of this issue will be the 23rd of July if it's on the newsstands, or the 22nd if you have a subscription. So you get to read it a day before everybody else. How's that? And next, we'll look at issue 15, a magazine that I edit and design, so that really is all my fault. So, Model Car, Truck and Motorcycle World, issue 15. What's in this issue? This is a quarterly publication, and it is due to hit the newsstands on the 30th of July. Or obviously with subscription, you'll get it a day before in the UK. So again, well worth considering. We kick off with the cover feature on this issue. French modeller Yannick Eggio takes the venerable 143rd Citroën 2, the traction avant by Hella, and creates a magnificent little barn-find vignette diorama from it. Stunning bit of work from Yannick. He takes an old kit, brings it up to date, weathers it, puts it in a lovely setting. I mean, it just really is fantastic modelling. And I've got to say, I mean, you know, I build aircraft. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. Really, really nice. Yannick's going to be in the next issue with the old SE large scale BMW and sidecar, again, finished in a very bright colour scheme. So that'll be worth looking out for. Anyway, I digress. What else is in the issue? Hugh Morgan gets his hands on a 70s classic of the racing scene, the Zack Speed Capri Turbo, finished in a fantastic black, red and yellow livery. It really is redolent of the period, and Hugh does it absolutely full justice. Going back slightly further in time and delving into the truck aspect of the magazine, Eric Fontaine takes the Bedford J6 and turns it into a tow truck. This is 1/24th scale. It uses a Model Cars resin 3D printed cab, and he converts one of the old Par Bedfords and then scratch builds the tow truck and the crane at the back. Eric's modelling is superb, and this is no exception. Speaking of trucks, the next feature is a little update and description of the UK's biggest truck modelling event, which is the Gaydon Model Truck Festival. It's normally held in June, but it is actually moving to September next year. But the organiser, Ashley Coghill, will describe it to you in full detail. And we have pictures of some of the entrants and the prize winners. So it's nice to lend our support to that festival again, and I hope we can carry on doing that next year. Speaking of motorbikes, if you've won the lottery or sold a couple of kidneys, you would be able to buy a Ducati V4 Supara. It's a very, very high-end, lightweight, high-speed racing bike, which costs about 50 billion pounds. But if you've got about 40 quid, you can go out and buy Tamiya's latest 1/12th scale one. And we got one for review, and we gave it to Arnie Wookie, who's finished it in superb manner. I mean, honestly, you would be hard-pressed to tell this from the real bike. It's a fantastic build, fantastic kit, and just a joy to see this article. Speaking of Ethan Williams, who we inadvertently credited to John Bryan's Mauler in Sam, Ethan actually did build his kit, the next article. It's the Nissan Skyline 2000 Turbo, the GTES 124 scale kit. Obviously, Ethan is not very old. He's a fantastic modeller. He's Mike Williams' son, and he is a real upcoming star of the modelling world, I would say, and I'm very, very pleased to have him in the magazine. I'm looking at my contents page of the magazine at the moment, and I've just noticed that I've got a typo in there which I didn't spot. So there you go, live on air. It's my fault. Anyway, speaking of Tamiya, if you've ever wanted to add a bit of extra detail to their little 1/24 scale Abarth 635 SS, that's the Fiat that the Abarth Studios souped up in the 60s, then who better to guide you through how to add some extra detail and finish it in a magnificent way than our Spanish master modeller, Manu Gil. He's always worth a read, and this article is no exception. We have another show report next. Earlier in the year in Belgium, there is a massive auto modelling show, which probably not many people who aren't into automotive modelling know about. It's the Jabeka show. I was in South Africa at the time, so I asked one of our Dutch modellers, Kees Kamp, to go down, take a load of pictures, write up what it was about. So there's a report on that there. If you like anything with wheels and in kit form, that is a show to go to. I will get there next year. And actually, I won't get there next year because I'll be in South Africa, but I'll get there eventually, I promise you. After an interview with Scott Taylor of the Scale Modelers Supply, the Australian paint company, we move on to a classic funny car kit. This is AMT's 1969 Mustang, which they released as a gas runder hot rod. It was re-released by a company called Round 2. This is one of those cars that is just so redolent of the late 60s. Massive tip-up single-piece body, a huge engine wedged in underneath, a load of rollover bars, and it kind of did about 200 miles an hour. And it looks like it does 200 miles an hour, to be honest. I don't think I would like to drive that. But if you don't fancy driving one, have a look at Bill Horton's build of this classic model. We move back to trucks for the next article. Danny de Breclier has a stunning conversion of the Scania S730, the 124 skate Italian kit, which he turned into a long cab version, the S770. It's finished in magnificent style with Native American Indian woman art. We called it Dreamcatcher, and it really is. It's eye-catching as well as dream-catching. Very, 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 very lovely bit of modelling. Stephen Downs gives us an update on the diecast world in his ever-popular feature. That's trucks and cars in this issue. And finally, Nick Allen. We gave him an ICM 124 scale Ford Model A gangster car a while back, and he had a few accidents with it. But he persevered, refinished it. He actually built a new one. He felt so bad about it. Built a new one and finished it as a car which has been bullet-riddled with a very mean-looking gangster standing in front of it in a little diorama that was actually inspired by some AI photo work he did of the kit once it was finished. So there's a kind of a tail wagging the dog moment there, but it's quite nice to see AI actually inspiring some real modelling. The last article in this issue is by Canadian modeller Larry Reed. Now, it's quite an unusual scale. It's 1/27th, and that's because basically it's scratch built. And once Larry had found the wheels of the right size, that actually then governs the rest of the kit's scale. In this case, it's a 1937 Studebaker cab-over engine 2-ton coal delivery truck, which is a bit of a mouthful, but this is just a fantastic piece of scratch building. It is so detailed. Larry's stuff and his brother Cliff, who helps out, is just beautiful to look at. I mean, I can't tell you how nice this model is. Well worth a read. And I hope Larry's pleased with what I've done with that in this issue. So that rounds it up for issue 15 of Model Car Truck Motorcycle World. Again, take out a subscription, see what you think. Even if you don't like cars, trucks and motorcycles, just buy one and have a read. It might just give you some ideas for the rest of your modelling. These guys are just as good as AFV and aircraft modelers, and they hide their light under a bushel, I think. But I would say that because I edit it. The August edition of Scale Aircraft Modelling, which is volume 48, issue number 6, has for its cover feature clear props, recent 148 scale Boeing F-4B4 US Navy biplane fighter. That was built by yours truly. And there is an in-depth build article inside where I give you the lowdown on how to get the best of this precise but somewhat fussy model. It does assemble nicely in the end, and hopefully my efforts speak for themselves. The rest of the magazine, as ever, has a mix of scales and subjects. So, what else can you find in there? Well, the first article is by Mario Sorelle. That's Edwards 172nd scale Messerschmitt ME109 G10, which Mario has built a trio of Messerschmitts, all in late war colour schemes, but none of them operated by the Luftwaffe. There is a Hungarian one, an Italian one, and a Croatian one. And obviously one of the reasons that late war Luftwaffe schemes are so popular is just the absolute mix of shades, colours and components used on these aircraft. And Mario does them full justice. Superb bit of modelling as ever. We move bang up to date now. Hugh Morgan gives us Kinetics 148 scale F-21, a US Marine Corps operated Lion. That of course is the IAS, the Israeli Air Force's Kafir, a version of the Mirage, which the Americans used as an adversary aircraft. Finished in low-vis grey. That is a very, very nice take on a well-known aircraft. Well worth a read. If your notion of the Vietnam War involves the soundtrack to The Ride of the Valkyries and references to surfing, you will no doubt be delighted to read John Bryan's build of the venerable monogram or reboxed by Revell 148 scale Bell UH-1C gunship, a kit which is actually older than John and required quite significant amounts of work to bring it up to date. John's recent modelling journey has involved lots of UH-1s, and this one is finished to just as exacting a standard as all the others. And speaking of John Bryan, we must at this point add an apology, a humble apology. A couple of issues ago, we had his Halford Models AM1 Mauler on the cover, and the article within the pages of the magazine was incorrectly attributed to another modeler. So our apologies to John for that. I know he was on here recently. He did take it in very good grace, but nevertheless, we have righted the record. Another fairly well-known aircraft, I think some of you may have heard of this one, features in the next issue. Jamie Hago builds IBG models, very, very new, 1/72nd scale, of something called a Spitfire Mark 5B. I think I'd heard of it. Jamie's modelling and finishing is well known, and it's on perfect display here. Again, it's a tricky little kit, which Jamie will give you the lowdown on how to get the best out of it. The next one is the aforementioned Boeing F4B4 by yours truly. Enough said about that. And then we move on to this month's Aircraft in Profile. Again, written by me, so anything in there that's wrong is all my fault. A very popular subject, I think, this one. It is the Sepecat BAE Systems Jaguar, which I give a short précis of history and design and development. And we also feature the HAL, the Hindustani Aircraft Limited version. It's currently still being used by the Indian Air Force, where they call it the Shamsher, the Sword of Justice. That's quite an interesting variant of the well-known Jaguar. So again, profiles by Sam Pearson, a range of them in there, including my favourites, which are the French Air Force desert-schemed Jaguars. Personally, I think that's they're the best schemes the Jaguar's ever worn. I know that's fighting talk to a lot of British modellers, but hey, voila, there we go. Colour conundrum this month, Paul Lucas delves into the Canberra with Airfix's new kit on the horizon. This will be of interest to many modellers, giving you some food for thought on some of the kind of highways and byways of potential Canberra conundrums and colour schemes. As ever, Sam Pearson provides profiles for those as well. And as ever, it's up to Paul's fantastic, authoritative, in-depth standards. Now, many of you will remember the multicoloured kits Matchbox released back in the 70s and 80s, and their 1/32nd scale range was quite innovative at the time with some very unusual releases. Effian Davey, I hope I've pronounced his name correctly there, takes the SBD5, the Dauntless that Matchbox released, and converts it back to an SBD2 in another Golden Wings colour scheme. So we've got 6 sets of wings with yellow on them, well actually 4 in this issue. That's a little trip down memory lane and a very interesting bit of historical research on this particular aircraft as well, which will give light to the fact that the article is called Midway Madness, and that is explained thoroughly in the article. Hobby Boss's 1/48 scale kit of the Romanian homegrown fighter, the IAR-80, features in the next article. That's built by Huang Ma Pingchuan, who finishes it in that lovely brown and green disruptive camouflage. I think the IAR-80 is an absolutely stunningly handsome little fighter. Probably would have performed a lot better had the Romanians managed to get a more powerful engine into it, but still a very worthy opponent, and I think is well liked by modellers of World War II subjects. So well worth a read. Tim Skeet comes to the rescue of vertical takeoff aircraft fans next with his build of Airfix's 1/24 scale GR3 Hawker Harrier. This recounts his build of that kit during the lockdown, so that's an intriguing take on a very popular subject. And finally, Harvey Lowe, Harvey Lowe appears in another of our magazines this month, where he builds a 1/72nd scale 3D printed model of a French pre-war and post-war flying boat. This was a 6-engined transatlantic or long-distance airliner. It's the Latécoeur 631, a very, very elegant, refined design, which was probably just slightly too late to really be commercially viable, given the fact that the war got in the way and the French did operate them on their kind of overseas colonial services afterwards, but not very successfully. They didn't fly that well, and I think they're a little bit unreliable. Nonetheless, as ever, is a classic case of beautiful French design and slightly less beautiful performance. But the build is brilliant, the model looks great, And to be honest, Harvey's work speaks for itself. We've also got obviously updates of new products and books, as well as coming next month. And as before, the best way to get hold of scale aircraft modelling is through a subscription at guidelinepublications.co.uk. This one will arrive on the newsstands on the 23rd of July, but with a subscription, it arrives a day before, fresh on your doormat, ready for you to enjoy. And again, with the potential closure of those Smiths branches, TG Jones, this is probably a really good and guaranteed way of getting hold of your favourite model aircraft magazine. So with that, that's this month's Sam finished. So there we go. That's it. So catch you next time, Benchmates. Have fun.
Do you want cutting-edge detail for your kits? Then take a look at Phase Hanger Resin Accessories, run by USAF veteran Mike Reeves. With real-world aircraft experience as a crew chief, Mike knows exactly where accuracy counts. And today, he's bringing that knowledge to life with precision 3D printed parts. From seamless intakes and nozzles to dropped flaps, pods, pylons, and cockpit upgrades, Phase Hanger's prints capture the crisp edges and fine detail that limitations in injection molding just can't reproduce. From 1/72nd to 1/32nd scale, you'll find add-ons from Cold War classics to the latest frontline jets with frequent new additions to the product range. Every piece is designed by modelers, for modelers, and faithfully reproduced on state-of-the-art printers and shipped worldwide, and are ready to drop straight into your next build. With additions to the product line landing all the time, there's always something fresh to elevate your next build. Explore the full range at phasehanger.com and follow Phase Hanger on Facebook and Instagram for regular updates and inspiration. Phase Hanger Resin Accessories, authentic detail designed with a veteran's eye and available to modelers everywhere. Phase Hanger is a proud sponsor of the Beyond the Box Art podcast.
Head to beyondtheboxart.com for host bios, guest features, and direct links to all our social channels. Your central hub for staying connected. And now, our featured interview. Conversations with the people shaping the hobby, from individual modelers to leading manufacturers, exploring every aspect of scale modelling together.
Right then, we are now joined by Mike Blalok from Patriot Models in the USA, winner of the 48 in 48 auction for the American side of the charity to actually come onto the show, but with the subject he has, he would have been a guest regardless anyway. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the invite. Seriously, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, let's rattle on with the questions, and I'm sure people are going to find this an interesting discussion, but a warning for those of a sensitive nature, and especially former service personnel, especially those that have suffered with mental health. Some of this discussion may be a little bit hard to listen to, so audience discretion is probably advised here, but please, if you can, stick with it. You're going to hear and learn quite a lot, especially for those in the United States. Okay, Michael, before we talk about Patriot Models, we'd like to get to know the man behind the organisation a little bit. Can you tell us a little about yourself, your military service, and how you first discovered scale modelling?
Sure. So I am from the southeast of the United States. I was born at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which is a military installation that is the home of the 82nd Airborne. My father was part of the 5th Special Forces Group. He was a Green Beret. He fought in Vietnam. I was born in 1970 there at the hospital base, on base, and moved pretty quickly. A couple of months later, moved back to where my mother and father were from at the time, or where they had lived, and so the metro Atlanta area in Georgia. I grew up there, attended school all around the city, and then I joined the military right after high school, went to basic training, and then got stationed at Fort Ord, California, it's no longer there. That installation has been shut down, budgetary cuts in like the early 2000s, I think.
So when it was there, Fort Ord, California is really close to Monterey. So it's about halfway between San Francisco and LA on the West Coast. And it was the home of the 7th Infantry Division. 7th Infantry Division was the Rapid Deployment Force on the West Coast. The 82nd Airborne is the Rapid Deployment Force now for the world, really, but at the time it was for the East Coast. And so I was there as a missile gunner, a Stinger missile gunner, as a shoulder-fired missile, anti-aircraft missile. So my job was basically to go with light infantry, which means there's no mechanized machinery with you. So it's Humvees. I think like a Deuce and a half is the largest vehicle that you would drive. All right. So basically everybody's humping their gear. Everybody's basically got their stuff and we're all marching where we're going. And then I'm supposed to climb the nearest mountain, dig a hole, and make sure no planes get us. So that was what I did. And so because of that, I sort of got into aircraft modeling when I did pick it up. But after the military, I went into the automotive field. I worked with cars, basically cars in repair shops for dealerships, primarily Honda. So if you had a Honda vehicle and you had a warranty issue or you needed service on it, whatever, you came to the dealership to get it worked on, I'd be the guy there to talk to. Eventually worked my way up into management and all that, and then got burnt out, decided to do something else, and my wife and I both pivoted, went back to college and became teachers. We're both high school teachers at rival high schools here in Manatee County, Florida. She is at Palmetto High School, the home of the Tigers. I'm at Parish Community High School, home of the Bulls. And so we both teach forensic science, which I joke with my kids and say is basically how to get away with murder is what I teach.
That's an interesting way of putting it. But just rolling back a second, Fort Bragg, was that renamed or am I imagining things?
Fort Bragg is still Fort Bragg as far as I'm aware. I don't think it got renamed.
I was just having a quick Google and there's something about 2023. It was renamed Fort Liberty.
Oh, maybe they did.
To remove the ties to the Confederacy, and now it's been renamed back again to Fort Bragg.
Yeah. So everybody that, well, you know what? I'll just leave that alone. I didn't know that it had been changed. There's a movement to change a lot of names, and I don't really pay attention to that movement. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I know that there's a good intention behind the movement, and there's nothing wrong with the good intentions, but I think that to erase history is not smart. So I don't really agree with the way they're going about the movement, not the movement itself.
Right. Okay. So obviously you talked about you are a scale modeler. What have you got on your bench at the moment?
So right now I've got a couple of different things. Actually, I have three models going right now. I thought I had the third one done, and I don't know, I think I picked up the bottle of something I shouldn't have, because when I went to put a gloss coat on it to do my decals, it does not look gloss, so I've got to redo that. But I've got a Corvair rocket that I'm working on. So because of the birthday of America, right, I was working on this little Corvair rocket. So this is it's actually like a precursor to the shuttle, like the Columbia and all the shuttles that we did. So it was designed by the same guy. So they took this design and then made the shuttle out of it, basically. Like this was designed about 20 years before the shuttle. So anyway, this one never came to fruition. It was just a design, so I get to do it any way I want. And then
Gotcha. So it's very much like a lifting body sat on top of a rocket rather than...
Yeah, so it's got the lift rocket here.
Mm-hmm.
Then on top of that, it has another stage here. And then this panel lifts off, except that I've glued it down because it kept falling off. Inside here is a pod with the shuttle inside it.
Oh, okay.
So 1/144 scale. So, there's room for 5 in here. Room for 5 astronauts. And
what make is the kit?
This is, where is it? It's not an Aurora, is it? It's a remake.
Limburg?
It's an old Revell kit.
Okay.
That was bought out by Atlantis.
Right.
So Atlantis bought a whole bunch of old Revell kits and has repackaged them.
Okay, so that's the Space Shuttle...
Corvair.
Okay. Interesting. I hadn't seen that before. Interesting concept.
Yeah, it's not really popular.
Hmm.
It wasn't a very good model. It was not good. The plastic was, there was a lot of flash. There's no panel lines. And there's probably 4 panel lines, I should say. And they're very crude. They're very thick.
Gotcha.
It looks toy-like, even where I've sanded and tried to take the lines out of this.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And then if you look right, see if I can show it to you. You got to get the light just right. But there's a divot in it right here where just the casting on it just did not. And it's on both sides of it. I did a pretty good job of filling and sanding it back out on this side. But on this side, even after filling and sanding it, there's a pretty good divot right there.
Gotcha.
And so you got to keep the light on it just right. But yeah, it was a lot of work. And I got to a point on it where I was just like, I'm probably not going to win a medal with this thing anyway. I just want to make it red, white, and blue and put it on the shelf. Okay, let's go.
Fair enough. Okay, you said you had 3 on the shelf, on the workbench.
Yeah, the Apache. I have a 135th Apache Academy going up that I'm doing as a rigor mortis, which is the first copter in Desert Storm to fire a shot. It opened Desert Storm. Basically, that copter put out the radar that let all the Allied planes in to do the initial bombing.
Gotcha.
So there were actually 8 helicopters, 8 Apaches, and 4 MH-53s for the mission, but only half of them did the job that way. No, they didn't know where it was coming from, basically. So it was basically 6 helicopters, 4 Apaches, 2 MH-53 Pavlos that did the job. And this one is the guy that did the one that fired first was the lead copter. And I want to eventually do a diorama of all of them. Is why I picked this. But as I was telling you earlier, there aren't decals for this, so I'm having to have them made. Just finding the numbers for these copters is not easy to start with. You've got to do a lot of digging to find just the information because, they classify all that stuff. And so to get all the historical facts correct on it is not easy. But if you dig, you can find it. So I'll get it eventually.
Okay, and model number 3?
Third one, M41 Bulldog. It's a Tamiya kit done in 135th, but the Bulldog is a small tank. I bought it because I'm just kind of a dumb modeler when it comes to that. I've not been modeling that long, right? So I got back into this about 2 years ago now, and when I got into it the first time, I only did 1 or 2 models and quit. So my experience is very limited. And, I keep hearing Tamiya is so good, Tamiya this, Tamiya that, blah, blah, Tamiya. So, I saw this kit at I think Hobby Lobby or something. It was like $16. Hey, $16, what? Can't go wrong. And let me tell you, it went together super quick. Honestly, for me, I'm now getting to a point where the paint has been a bottleneck for me because I had a compressor that went down and I was waiting for my birthday to get this compressor. And so my birthday came, and then so did Father's Day and my birthday and my father's birthday, and my wife had surgery all within a 5-day span. And so I'm just now getting back to where I can get a little time in the office and the bench. So I hope to catch up on some of that pain, but normally I would not have 3 on the bench. I normally only have 1 on the bench.
Gotcha.
But I built as far as I could and couldn't paint anymore. So here we are.
Fair enough. Okay, Dan.
Sounds like you're a very busy man, Michael.
I do stay busy, yes, sir.
So, Patriot Models has a powerful mission statement, I notice, which is no soldier left behind. For listeners hearing about the organisation for the first time, could you tell us how Patriot Models came into being and what inspired you, Carrie and Tom to create it, please?
Yeah, so it's kind of a 2-pronged thing as far as, why I'm here versus the creation of it. The first creation of it was not as altruistic as what it eventually became. So the raw story of how Patriot Models came to be is my wife and I, as I just mentioned earlier, decided to change careers. And so we became teachers and we moved to Florida from the metro Atlanta area. And one of the reasons we did that is because she was in the medical field and I was in the automotive field. And both of those fields, at least in America, they're famous for having terrible schedules. They're famous for being soul-eating, just they'll eat you up and they'll spit you out. They just eat you up and spit you out. And so we did them both for 20 plus years, and we didn't get a lot of time together. We certainly didn't get a lot of time together with our kids. We decided to retrain and maybe not make as much money anymore, but have more time together and do something we thought was important. So we decided to become teachers. And so we did. All right. So we moved down here, and my wife and I are diametrically opposed when it comes to personality types. Okay. I'm a go get 'em. I'm a type A, outgoing, never met a stranger, but don't ask me for the details. I'm going to struggle with the details. My wife, on the other hand, is very introverted. She's very nice, but she doesn't want to talk to everybody. She just doesn't. She doesn't have the social battery for everybody, right? Where I've got the social battery for everybody times 3. So we're just different in a lot of ways that way. And so she's a planner. I'm a guy, I'll plan it once and then I'll work off that plan forever, right? She's going to plan it once. When it doesn't go right, she's going to replan it. When it doesn't go right, she's going to replan it. When it doesn't go perfect, she's going to replan it again. It's just who she is. It's what she does. And she's very good at it. But it had me on the couch 2, 3, 4 afternoons a week for 3, 4 hours at a time, wondering why we were doing this where we could have time together when we weren't spending time together. So, of course, I, being Mike, hey, babe, I thought we was going to be spending time together. What's going on? And so she looks at me and goes, listen, how many Saturdays did I sit at home while you were at the dealership? I said, okay, yes, ma'am. I'll find something to do. She said, yeah, you need a hobby. I said, okay. So, I look around, I decide, wow, I want to do some scale modeling. So my throwback story for scale modeling is my uncle, who was like the younger brother of my mom and like the cool guy in the family. He had a bass boat. He had a motorcycle. He had a dirt bike and a road bike. He had a 39 Chevrolet. He had a 40 Dodge. He had all the toys. He had 7 acres of land where he could run his go-kart to, just everything, right? So I went and lived with him for a year, and while I was there, he asked me to build a model with him because he wanted to put this model on top of a trucker hat and go to the Southern Nationals, which is a drag racing championship here in the South. And he wanted me to wear this because I'm like 6'7". I'm 6'7". I'm really tall. So he wanted to make this model, put it on the hat, and then have me walk around this place. And then his theory is that the NHRA Today, which was the magazine that covered the NHRA, the National Hot Rod Association, would want my picture because I would stick out so much. I was like, okay, I'm like 13. Okay, Uncle Ron, he's my cool uncle, whatever, man. Uncle Ron wants to do it. That's what we do, right? So we build this 57 Chevy, paint it, make it look nice. He pulls out a trucker cap, right? He used to work for Younger Brothers, a trucking company. So he pulls out a trucker cap. He takes 2 bread ties for the front axle, 2 bread ties on the back axle, just attaches it down, throws it on my head. And the next weekend we head down to Southern Nationals. And I'll be damned if the NHRA Today did not put my picture in the paper. They did. Back then it wasn't a magazine. It was literally like a newspaper that you got, like a monthly newspaper. And so, yeah, they put me in the paper, right? So I've got that somewhere here. I don't know where, but, that's my only model making. I did one more. It was, what was it? It was a Spitfire, I think. I can't remember. It was a plane. I couldn't even get it. I glued it to my fingers. I wasn't with my uncle. It was terrible, right? So I was just, this is not going well. So, I decided to go back to it. So I pull the first model out, and again, I stick it all to my fingers. So I'm like, okay, let's go to YouTube, right? Let's go to YouTube. So I go to YouTube, I start trying to get better. So I find a couple of guys I like, I start watching them. This one weekend, I'm watching this one show, and I put my phone down to go make a sandwich in the kitchen, and I'm kind of half listening or whatever. When I come sit back down with my sandwich, I'm watching, and this guy sits down at Models for Heroes. He's in the warehouse for Models for Heroes talking with Malcolm about Models for Heroes. And I'm like, whoa, because there's like A10, there's AH-64, there's, CH-53, I'm just like aircraft. I was like, whoa, look at this place. And no sooner than I recognize all these things, Malcolm says, yeah, we've got so many models. We're looking for veterans. We can't give them all away, right? We're literally looking for people. So I'm like, say less, right? Let me make sure I go down here and get his contact info, right? I fire off an email. Hey, man, this is where I serve, blah, 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 blah. It took about, 3-4 days, whatever. And Malcolm shoots me back an email. Hey, I appreciate your service. We thank you so much. But unfortunately, I don't have the budget to do the entire world. I just do Great Britain, right? I'm sorry. Although we have more than what we need, I don't have enough to do the entire world, so I can't just open it up here or there. I hope you understand. I'm like, of course that makes sense. I wasn't thinking when I even emailed you, right? It just kind of a knee-jerk thing. I appreciate it. He's like, hey, no problem. Here's a couple places in the States that do it. Check them out. So I was like, okay, thanks. And, I don't know, a week went by or whatever. And then I was like, oh yeah, let me check that out. So I went to look up the first place and it had shut down during COVID. So I was like, okay, well, so I check out the second place and it had also shut down during COVID. And then the third place also shut down during COVID. So there wasn't anybody doing it. And so I just, as somebody who's a military vet, especially, I don't know how it is in Great Britain or in Europe at all, but in the States, vets just kind of know, like, you have benefits, all right? And if you really need them, if you got a leg that's fallen off, if you have cancer, if you have like some sort of serious something, you can go to the VA and you can get help, but they're going to make you go through a gauntlet to get it, all right? It's not just here's what you need. No, you're going to have this form and it's going to have it this way. And it's specifically difficult so that unless you really, really need the benefits, you're not going to come get them. That's the attitude of everybody that I know that's a veteran, all right? That's their experience and mine, okay? So, with that in mind, when that happened, I was like, yeah, well, not that surprising, really. Kind of the way it goes, whatever. And I let it go, or at least so I thought. Week and a half later, I'm in my class, because, like I say, I'm a high school teacher, and I do this thing where I do a gradual release. I teach it, and then we kind of do it, and then you do it yourself, right? So it's I do, we do, you do. And so, I'd already taught it, and we're in the we do portion of it, and I'm kind of going around helping people, kind of explaining the concept we're going over. And I hear one girl say to another as I'm walking by, yeah, you should join the Army because they get the best benefits. And sort of over my shoulder, I said, yeah, if you can get them, right? And I just kind of kept on walking. And as soon as it left my mouth, I was like, wow, I shouldn't have said that, because a lot of the kids that I deal with just don't have the opportunity to do much else, right? I joined the military straight out of high school. I didn't have college money, right? I joined the military because I needed college money, right? So, hey, okay, I stopped to turn and tell this girl to retract my statement, and another kid in my class says, what was that, Mr. B? And I said, nothing, actually. I was actually turning around to say something different because that really isn't very accurate. And he's like, no, what are you talking about? And so I elaborated. I gave him like a really short version, and I kind of told him about the whole Malcolm thing too, and just how it just seems like that's the way it goes. And he it's weird. This kid he's a lot like me. Like, he's one of those kids that wouldn't just do work because it was work to be done. He wanted to know why you wanted him to do the work. And he was kind of a smart ass a little bit too, which I also am sometimes some smart ass. So, as I'm telling him what's going on, it was just strange because he started like leaning into me, like he was getting more interested in my story as I went, which just wasn't him typically, not for something like this, because I was complaining, right? So why is this kid so interested? I'm complaining. So when I finished, he's looking right at me, he's leaned into me a little bit, he kind of grabs his chin, he goes, huh, that's interesting. So were you just complaining about that, or did you have some sort of strategy to solve your issue? So, unless you've been in my classroom, you really can't know that this is a phrase that I use often, right? Because teenagers have learned, especially these days, teenagers have learned to become so outspoken for themselves that if you're not careful, you don't just show them how to solve problems, you solve them for them. So that doesn't really help them at all, actually. All it does is teach them that somebody else has solved their problem. So I don't allow that. I require that if you want my help, that you put some forethought into your issue previous to coming to see me, right? So I'll help you with anything, but it's your problem, not my problem. So let me help you, not solve it for you. So this kid basically just pulls my own gun on me. That's basically what's just happened, right? So he's used my own phrase. He phrased it slightly different than I did, but he and I both know that he was saying the same thing that I was saying. It was an eye lock, right? So I didn't say anything. I snapped my mouth shut and I turned on my heel and I went back to my desk and I sat down. I was so mad because what could I say, right? Like, he's 100% right. All I'm doing is just jacking my jaw about how I'm not getting what it is that I want and how I deserve this or I deserve that and how somebody else didn't solve my problem for me, right? And so if there's anything that I teach these kids every day is when you have a problem, you should look for help. You should. But the first place that you look for that help is within yourself. Right? If you have the ability to help yourself, you should do that and take care of your problems and not become a problem for someone else. Right? But if your problem spills outside of your abilities, then yes, you should definitely ask for help. Right? But you should always be trying to solve your issues yourself first and then work out from there. Don't be scared to ask for help, but also have responsibility for yourself. Right? So I'm not doing this. So I'm mad because I'm a hypocrite. I'm literally running my mouth in the middle of this class with 25 people in it, and I'm literally talking about how you should do this and you should do that, and I'm doing the opposite. So I shut my mouth, I walk back to my desk, I sit down, and I really, for a little bit, I didn't know what to do. I was just really upset and angry about it because I didn't feel like it was right? Like we should be able to get help. Why can't we? Like, why is it that you can't get help? That's just bull. And then I was like, yeah, but again, what can I do to change that, right? Start with me. What can I do to change that? So I was like, okay, let me see. So I go onto my computer and these kids, they teach me so much, right? Chat GPT, right? You got to be, so they cheat with all sorts of AI. So you got to be smarter than them. You got to use the AI to catch the AI, right? So they don't understand that you can use the AI to catch the AI too. They didn't know that. Anyway, because of them having to use AI, I'm having to use AI. So I start asking questions. Okay, Chat GPT, tell me, let's see, what does it cost to start one? How long, where do you do this? What do you got to do? And so about 45 minutes later, I have block classes. So my class is about an hour and a half long. About 45 minutes later, I just walked back over to the kid with my laptop, turning around, showing Patriot Models, right? I had an entity within the hour. Right? I started Patriot Models over a challenge that a kid gave me, right? Over being being shown as a hypocrite, right? I'm not a hypocrite. If there's anything that I'm not a hypocrite. So I had to do something. Right? So who am I going to turn to? I'm going to turn to me first. And yeah, I'm going to ask for help, right? That's part of why I'm here today. I'm going to ask you and all the folks listening. I'm going to ask everybody for help. But I'm also going to pitch in myself and try to solve the problem myself first and then work out from there, right? So, but it started because I was ticked off that I didn't get what I wanted, right? That's how it started. It was not altruistic to start with. But then when I realized I was just being a complainer and there was a problem here that needed solving because I was complaining about a real problem, right? Then when I realized that, I started doing all this digging. I realized, okay, well, in America, in the US, 17 veterans, actually it's like 17.6 veterans die from suicide every day, all right? And Malcolm, the guy who I just happened to be watching, did a study that proves that scale modeling, when it's shown to make a contact with the person that is doing it, is extremely effective for mental wellness, for helping you with anxiety, stress, PTSD, many, many different things, right? And as somebody who experiences that relief myself, I knew instantly that this was a true thing and could help a lot of people. So I decided, okay, what I need to do is not just do this, but do this on the level that Malcolm has done it, right? So why shouldn't America do its own study to also prove the effectiveness of this? Because Malcolm did a small scale study. I can do a large scale study, which is more than 100 people to study, right? I can do that here and add to the scientific body of information that we have about it. And then with that information, I can take it to the Veterans Administration here in the States and have them give that to every veteran in America. That's how it kind of got from where it began to what I am now attempting to do. So that's sort of the quick version. If
that's how you've got to where you are. That's absolutely fascinating. Yeah, you sort of stepped up and took the bull by the horns and said, right, let's do it. So you've obviously served your country and been recalled for Desert Storm, built a career outside the military, and now you teach forensic science. Looking back on that journey, how did scale modeling become the bridge between your own military experience and helping other veterans today?
You know, the helicopter kits that they have out right now, right? This Academy kit that I've got right here that I'm looking at, it just gives me so much nostalgia. Like, I can smell it. When I see some of the detail that I bought the Quintus 3D decals for this thing. I mean, it's stinking amazing, man. Like, I don't know, they just got so good that when I saw these models, it just put me there. It just took me back to 1989, 1990, 1991, 1992. And for anybody that, I'm 56, right? For anybody that's my age, like 88 to 92, good Lord, was there a better 4 or 5 year span in life? I don't think there was, as far as from my personal experience. So, this thing just instantly takes me back there. And I think that's really what locked me in, like really hooked me. After that, it was all about like just seeing needs for things. And, like I just didn't know, my brother committed suicide in 2020, right? So that's before I got into this. Okay. I started Patriot Models in 2025 in April of last year. Or March of last year, I should say. So March of last year. My brother committed suicide in 2021. My mother died during COVID in 2020. And my brother and my mother were very codependent. So once she died, he just did not know what to do. And he committed suicide. And so, my struggle between part of why I left what I was doing to do teaching was because my brother was no longer here, and he was my younger brother by 10 years. Okay. He was my junior by 10 years, and his life is done, right? It's had a beginning, it's had a middle, and it's had an end. Okay. And I look at my life and I decide I've had 10 years longer than him already. Have I done what I want to do? Have I accomplished anywhere near what it was I set out to do? And do I still want to even accomplish those things? What do I want to do? That's why we pivoted and moved to do something else, right? And so within that journey of deciding where I'm going to make a difference in this world and how I'm going to do it, I have fallen upon this. Some people would say that's destiny. Some people would say that's God. It depends upon your framework, right? It depends upon how you look at things. But I feel like I'm supposed to be here. That's how it feels to me. It feels as if, you say like Army and then automotive and now forensics and scale modeling. And, they're like, yeah, me too, brother. I got the same puzzled look on my face too when it all came down the pipe at me. I don't know. It just, for some way, somehow, it's all fit together really well. Just for instance, like the helicopter that I'm doing, right? It's rigor mortis. I'm a forensics teacher, y'all. You don't see how rigor mortis might lock in there, right? Like, just things like this. So one of the things that I've been doing to raise money for Patriot Models for the last year and 3 or 4 months now is I drive Uber, right? So I'm a teacher, and everybody knows teachers make about that much, which I got my fingers pretty close together, y'all. Not a lot, right? So I do this Uber on the side because if I didn't, there wouldn't be a Patriot Models, right? You wouldn't believe the people I've met in this vehicle.
Yeah.
The people that have been instrumental in things like, so I met a gentleman who's linked me with the county that I live in. Manatee County is opening it's a Veterans Memorial Gardens and Service Hub, which is kind of a new thing for us. Like, that's not really a thing, but they've started doing these across the U.S. And so the Service Hub portion of it, they're going to put Patriot Models in one of the offices there. So I have a dedicated office. I'll have office space, maybe a little bit of storage too. I don't know. I doubt how much storage I'm going to have, but I look at Malcolm, right? He's got a warehouse. He's got 5 Connexes full of stuff, right? So I'm thinking like, where do I need to be? What do I need to get prepared for? Because basically I'm just cloning what he's doing. So, lots to do. My biggest problem with Patriot Models, there's 2 big problems. And I'm probably going to steal everybody's questions too when I answer this, but it's kind of important. Here's 2 problems we've got, right? Funding, getting enough money together to be able to do this at the right level so that people can access it properly when they need it and, how they need it. And 2 is having people to actually admit they're not okay. They're not perfect. They're not, and please don't take this wrong, Dan, but you say yes, but when I ask you if you need help, you'll tell me no. During this podcast, when I ask you, you'll tell me yes, of course. But what I'm saying is like, I don't know if you're a veteran or not, but let's just for a second assume that you're a United States Army veteran, right? And I said, man, this is for somebody just like you. Most people, when I say that to them, they say, I got a buddy that has PTSD, or I know somebody that could really use this. But no one says, you know what, I really could use that. I've yet to have a single person tell me, you know what, I really could use that. Everybody says, yep, there are people that need that. You're so right, Mike. Everybody needs this. Everybody.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been in the military, because you've been through basic training. That basic training in itself is trauma. And I mean that in the most sincere way. Basic training in U.S. military, and I'm sure everybody else's as well, is a sort of trauma. They trauma bond those people together so that they work together as a unit. It's a mind screw on purpose, right? So if you've been in the military, you've had trauma. There's no way you can say you haven't. And if you've had trauma, then you can use therapy. And that's what this is. So everybody wants to say it's a great thing, and they're right, it is. But nobody wants to say it's for me. I can say it's for me, bro, because I had a mom that lived in a car for God knows how long, right? I know I'm messed up in the head. I know there's no way anybody's going to tell me that I think the same way as anybody else. Just ask my wife, right? And if you don't think the same way your wife does, right, or your significant other, whoever it is that you spend a lot of time with, your best friend, your whoever, if you don't think the same way that is, then what is normal anyway, right? If you want to go defining what normal is, there isn't normal because nobody even knows what happens inside our brains to begin with. We don't even understand how it all works. So, we're all messed up in our own special way. It's okay to need therapy. I can't speak for all therapy, right? But what I'm trying to offer people is this. It's called flow. If you've ever been in any sort of activity that you've done long enough to get really good at, where you can do it unconsciously, such as driving a car, right? Or let's say I'm 6'7", so I'm a basketball player, right? Let's say you do any sort of sport or any sort of competition type activity, and you get to a point in it where you have a game where you just can't do it wrong, right? It's like flowing, right? That's called flow, when it just flows, right? So if you've ever been in a modeling session where you look down and you start really getting into something and focusing down in on it to do it, and then you look up and it's 3 hours later, that's flow. Okay, that's the therapy I'm offering people. That's it. That's all it is. It's that simple. But it's for people who are having issues mentally, people who can't put everything down mentally, right? You've heard of people juggling things, right? I've got this schedule. I got to pick up the kids. I got to make dinner. I got to mow the lawn. I got to take out the trash. I got to make sure that the bill's paid for the cable. Tomorrow I'm picking up my friend over here. You got all these things you're juggling, right? You're juggling this. You got to make sure you're doing this. Has got to be timed properly. I got to do this now. What about next week? We got to plan for that. You can put all that stuff down. You can lay it all down. Right? And some people can do that without therapy, right? Without modeling, without trying to put themselves in the spot to do it. Some people can naturally do that. They can just go, you know what, I need to take a break from this. And they can do that. But a lot of people can't. And for those people, this is wonderful if I can find a model that will touch you, right? If I can have a discussion with you and figure out what your first car is, The first vehicle, especially in America, cars are huge because it's such a big place. And, like America's still sort of that throwaway society where a building gets old, we'll just go build a new one. So because of that, having transportation is really, unless you're in a big city, it's a huge deal as a teenager, right? Getting that first car, even if it's just access to dad's car or whatever, being able to go out with your friends and get into all those high school hijinks. If I can find the model and year of the car that you have and I can get it in a model and send it to you in a care package and you open that up, yeah, you're going to model forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of there'll be a huge proportion that would love to build military models, but there will be a percentage that don't want anything to do with a green or olive drab or desert yellow machine. They just want to build a car or a sci-fi or something totally different, And
some people won't want to do it at all. Okay. Some people, I get all the time, oh, I won't have the patience for that. Yeah, nobody has the patience for it, bro. Nobody has. I mean, who do you think we're all like Gandhi over here? No, please.
Not in the beginning. God.
That's not the point. The point is, will you slow yourself down long enough?
That's it. Yeah.
To actually engage in it. That's the question. If you can do that, and there are a certain amount of people that can't do that. That cannot do that, right? I've met some because I'm trying to model with these veterans, and there are vets out there that they don't have the mental capability to be able to put it down to do this.
They do. They have it within them, but I think there's easier options out there. Unfortunately,
some of them may need some medication before they get there.
And some of those options, unfortunately, may be opening up a bottle or, taking stuff that's not good for them. So if you can catch them and, like you say, first of all, get them to admit that they do have an issue and find that link. So I suppose your structure in finding out what people like you say, whether it's automotive or something like that, is you've got to think fast, haven't you? And you've got to catch them while they're on the hook and then hopefully get to that step where they can sit down. You mentioned the Vetrans Hub. That is growing here. There's quite a few ex-RAF bases that have been retaken over. I know there's one near us at West Raynham, and they've got a huge Vetrans Hub there now, and the building is very old, but they've bought it, and they're even, as well as doing modelling over there, they're doing gardening, they're getting people doing painting and decorating and renovation. There's ladies that are working in the cafe, they have veterans breakfast, and this whole thing just snowballing now, and now they're able to have open days. They have the cockpit sections that go there that people can go and sit in a cockpit. They have military vehicle days and classic car shows, and it's just organic. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. But it just takes a core of people to say, we need to do this, and we need a bit of grit and determination, and hopefully we'll get something done from it.
Yeah, it does. I mean, so it's so great to hear all of that because I know that's where I'm headed, right? So it's good to be on these shows a lot of times just because it does remind me of the things that are to come, right? Because it's tough. Like you get out here, like I just did a show this weekend, right? I just did a show in Plant City, Florida. It was called PAMSCon, PAMSCON, PAMSCon. So it's just an expo, right? They do a little model competition, and they have vendor tables. So I typically buy vendor tables, and then I set up and I have models that I use to model with people. I'll sell them at this event and then buy new ones with what I make with it, right? I just recycle them basically, but it gets me out there. Sometimes we make, $5-10 on a model if we can or whatever too. But I might sell, I think we made $200, right? In a day, we made $200. It cost me $40 in gas to get there and back. So, it's more about just getting out there and letting people know that we're there. We're not making any money going out there. It's just about letting people know that Patriot Models is here, trying to give people a resource to tap into, right? And then also just say that again.
Well, it's creating the social connection, isn't it? It's creating that social connection and that purpose and
Yeah, and I meet all sorts of people. Like I met Chi Wang this weekend. I don't know if you guys know who Chi Wang is. That he's a creative director for IPMS magazine, right? So International Modeler, Plastic Modeler, IPMS, International Plastic Modelers Society of the USA. They have a magazine that, comes out monthly if you're a member. So I get it every month. So I was just looking at it. They got this freaking cool tank in it this month that I've been like salivating over. And so the guy that does the art setup for that, the pictures and setup for that, like I met him, right? To me, it's still like, I don't know, it's like going to Hollywood and meeting a whole lot of famous people. Like, it's awesome. This is my third podcast, I guess. Right, I feel like a celebrity. Like, I'm rubbing elbows with all these people. Like, it's a lot to do, but we're just trying to get it out there so people can see. But it is everybody wants to tell you what you ought to do, right? Oh, you should try this, you should try that, and like most of those things I tried already. And the problem is, like, a lot of those things that I haven't tried already, they might be great things to try. It's just like there's only a few of us, right? So I can't try them all, right? I just don't have the time of the day to do them all. So, raising awareness that we're here so that people can use us, that's number one. Number two is, getting the word out that, hey, mental health is like a sliding scale. Nobody is mentally healthy, okay? Nobody is there. It's not a thing that you have. It's something that you continually maintain, right? It's like being fit, right? You don't go get fit and then you're done, right? Oh, one got fit, I'm good now. No, you have to stay fit. Mental health is the same thing. You have to stay mentally fit. You have to keep an eye on your mental health, right? So it's letting people know it's okay to say I'm not okay. It's okay to not have to be this, especially us guys. Oh, I'm fine. I'm good. Are you though? Are you really good? Are you going to talk to somebody if you're not? Or are you just going to get mad and go punch something and not talk to anybody, right? Because it's better if you just let it out. You express yourself a little bit. Even if you got to go get some writing paper and, write it, right? Just express yourself, let it out. Some other way than hitting something to be great.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is just, we're trying to raise enough money so that we can do it at a proper level, right? So, what I've told people is like, I would love to meet a Jeff Bezos or, somebody that could just say, here, Mike, here's $20 million, put it in the bank and work off the interest and just do whatever you need to do. All right. That'd be awesome. I would love to do that. It wouldn't solve all our issues or anything like that, but it'd give us a good head start to be able to do what we want to do and really make a wave quickly. But I don't think it could happen. I don't want to say it's not going to happen because, hey, Jeff, I'm right here or whoever. But in the meantime, for the rest of us regular folks out there, for the price of a latte for $5 a month, right? You could go to www.patriotmodels.org, right? And there's a donate button, right? There's a donate page too. You go to the donate page and then hit the donate button, or you just scroll the bottom, go straight to the donate button, whatever. Once you hit the donate button, it'll give you some choices on how you want to do that, with which way you want to pay. And you can do it repetitively or a one-time gift, right? And I tell people, hey, if you want to give a couple $100, we would love that. It'll help us buy some models. I've got an event going on the 9th that I was literally talking to the guy about, he's going to make me buy some paint. It sounds like that I did not know I needed to buy. I probably got to buy $200 worth of paint for this February 9th thing, right? So if you want to send a couple $100, yes, that's great. But what we really need is about 5 million people to do $5 a month for life, right? A latte a month. Donate a latte a month for mental health for veterans. That's what I want people to do, right? If I get 1,000 of those, we'll have a pretty decent budget. If I get 5,000 of those, I probably won't be a teacher anymore. I'll be running veterans. I'll be running Patriot Models 100% nonstop all the time. And I've done a lot in a year doing it part-time. So I'm sure if I did it full-time, I could get a lot more done. Not that eventually that may happen. I don't know. Or maybe it won't. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But I'm definitely set up so that it could scale that way if it needs to. I want every veteran in the world to eventually get this. Malcolm and I have talked about the fact that, he's got Great Britain in a great place for this, right? It is booming, like you're talking about, right? I'm in the tip of doing this here in Tampa, right? I'm in the Tampa, Florida area. I'm on the tip of I've got people are opening their eyes to this big time, but nobody's opened their pocketbook yet, but they are opening their eyes and they're agreeing to all sorts of things for me. Or for us. So that's great. Right. But no matter what, it's not about what I want. It's not about whether I can make it do this. Or it's about the need of 17.6 veterans a day that take their life. It's about, can I get to one of them? Can I get to one today? Right? Maybe it's not that guy. Maybe it is. You don't know. I can tell you this. If I had the opportunity to go back and tell my brother about scale modeling, sit down and do a one-on-one scale modeling session with him, you can bet your ass I'd do it. You can bet. Might have given one more reason to wake up tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Leads on to the next question, Mike. Because obviously your ambition is incredibly powerful to put a scale modeling kit in the hands of any veteran who wants help. That's a huge vision, which obviously, I'm 100% behind. What does success look like to you over the next 5 or 10 years? And how close do you think you'll get to that, achieving that goal?
Wow, that's a great question. I've made some pretty good inroads. It's not just me. I have a team that I work with. I say I because I'm the face of it all. My wife does a lot with this. Tom Ward, who is one of our board members, he's in Arizona. He's a buddy of mine. We went through the military together. We were stationed in the same place. He does a lot of work for me on the internet. I got a guy that's working with us that does funding through grants and stuff, that he's working on that. Right now, we haven't really had any grants paid yet, but we're working towards that. So when I say I, right, please guys, fill in us. It's not just me. But, 5 years, I hadn't really thought about it exactly where I want to be 5 years. Again, scalability for this is huge, right? So I currently have stock sitting in my house so that I could take care of 20 veterans going through our full process, which would be the process that we use is we introduce you to scale modeling one-on-one. We invite you back for a second scale modeling session. After the second scale modeling session is done, we're going to ask you, is this something that you feel like you want to pursue? And if you say yes, then we're going to send you a care package to your house that has that model I was talking about that we're going to try to figure out what hits your buttons, right? We're going to send you a scale model that specifically hits that button, and then a couple of others that are kind of cool or whatever, and all the stuff, nippers, sanding sticks, paint set, all of it, right? The whole thing to do it at a pretty high level. $300-$400 worth of stuff to your door, right? That's the process. So I have enough stuff to do that for about 20 guys, right? So it's hard to find those guys because of what I was talking about. Nobody wants to say it's me. They want to say it's him. And then when you point him out, he doesn't want to come. So the problem that I get is right now, it's hard for me to get 1 or 2, but then on the 9th, I got 13 that could turn into 25 before it happens. I don't know. Right. So I don't have 25. I only have 20. And, once this happens, he could want to do that once a month for all I know. I don't know. So, I'd like to be in a place where if that did happen once a month in 5 years, that would not be a problem. I wouldn't have to wonder where that's coming from. I'd like to have not only an office that, again, that's coming, but it's a county initiative, which means it'll happen when it gets done, right? I can't, there's no, okay guys, hey, I need this office, let's go. There's no hurry in the county. They're going to get it done when they get it done. So, in 5 years, will that be done? Yeah, more than likely it'll be a done deal. So I have an office at that point, but the storage in that place will be minimal. In 5 years, I'm going to need, I don't know exactly how big, but a decent size storage facility if things go the way I plan them to. And, I basically want to be able to ship nationwide and, including, the Guam, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii, everywhere, all U.S. territories. So, I want every U.S. veteran to have the opportunity to tell me, no, thank you, I don't want that. So can I do that in 5 years? I can get the study done. I can take it to the VA. I can have that process in process. I think I can have that done in 10, but I don't know if I can get it done in 5. So I'll be somewhere in between there, I believe, if things go right.
Well, I hope it all goes well for you, Mike. I really do.
But as much as you say that, Mike, it's a very good vision to have. And it's quite I'm not going to say it's grandiose, but you've got your goal. You know what your end point is going to be. So it's like you said throughout this interview, it's definitely scalable. And I know here in the UK, a lot of our listeners are veterans as well. And if they're not veterans, they want to help veterans as much as possible. And of course, as you know, Models for Heroes does a lot of work with people that have come out of the emergency services as well. So I just wanted to ask Mike, if someone was listening to our episode today, particularly a lot of our American listeners, obviously I really do want to stress that the best way to support you guys at Patriot Models is to donate on your website. But apart from that, are there other ways that people can donate? Could they give you some kits? Could they offer some voluntary time? Is there any other ways that they can get involved with Patriot Models to help you guys out?
Yeah, actually, I'm more than welcome to we'll take donations of any kind, certainly, or well, I say any kind. I just went to a class that was like, watch out what you take, because sometimes this other nonprofit that was in the room, someone gifted them a boat, right? And then it turned out boat needed like $150,000 worth of work before it were run. So we won't take anything. But when it comes to kits, I'll take partially finished kits. I'll take kits that don't have parts in them. I'll take kits for kit bashing. So one of the initiatives that I've begun, but I've kind of hit a little bit of a roadblock, but I'm still trying to work around is, with Patriot for Models, with this whole veterans thing, that's great. But then when I got in, I realized, okay, so, there's this whole like gap between your IPMS guys and your younger folks, right? Like your Bandai guys and all of that. And of course, I work with these people. I'm a high school teacher, so I'm literally I specialize in how to reach that particular age group, literally. So I'm like, how can we get these people together? So here was my thought. Why couldn't I take JROTC? I don't know if you guys have JROTC there, but it's Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. So it's an Army-led initiative in high schools that finds kids that thinks maybe they want to go into the military. And then if they do like so many service hours, they basically join at one higher rank than they would if they hadn't, right? So it gives you like a leg up as you go in the military.
Yeah. We've got something similar, yeah.
So my idea was, let's take these JROTC kids that don't really know much about modeling, and if they do, it's Bandai or it's sci-fi kits or it's Gunpla, something like that. Most of those kids that are into any sort of that is that kind of thing. They don't know anything about the World War II kits and stuff. So how do I ever get them involved? Or even a lot of them would be into it if they even knew. They don't know about it, right? There's so much on the internet. Like, how would you even find that? It's just the information is so voluminous. So I was like, if I could introduce them to modeling and then get them involved with these vets. So picture this. I tell these kids, these teenagers, what I need from you is to help me give these vets therapy without telling them. We don't want them to know that they're getting therapy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them that you're helping them. Okay. So they're going to help you by giving you advice because they've been in the military and that's where you might want to go, right? So, but what we're really doing is therapy. And then I'm going to pivot over here. I'm going to look at these veterans and say, okay, look, guys, it's really not about the models. It's about letting these JROTC guys know like what you experience, like just having conversations with these guys to kind of let them know whether they actually want to join the military or not. The models is sort of like an extra thing we're just getting you interested in, involved in because they're sort of interested in models. Right. So don't worry about the model thing. Just talk to the kids. Okay. So when you tell this guy he's helping that guy and that guy he's helping this guy when they're actually both helping one another, then it's like a double win. So you get a cross-generational bridge and everybody gets helped. So I'm trying to do that, but I ran into issues with the county because, you got veterans that need therapy with minors. So, there's this, they could, PTSD, they're probably unhinged, there's no telling what they're going to do with my child, so there's all of this that you got to combat. So I'm trying to, there's ways around it, but now that means now I got to vet every veteran. That means I got to have someone vet the veteran. And there's a cost to that, right? So now okay, so now I need more funding to get that. So I kind of back down from that for the moment. I'm doing a club to sort of start it. So then figure if I get the funding, then I can do the vetting of the vets and do that. But right now that's not really in place. So what I'm pivoting to talk to an ROTC, which is at the college level, So it's the same thing, but it's at college instead of in high school. And because they're in college, now they're not minors anymore. So there's no worry about, it's just the kid that you're talking to or the young person rather than their parents. So, but I'm still cultivating that relationship to get to know well enough that person who does that to get involved with it. So, we're getting it. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, it does. And no, I can definitely see the value in partnering veterans with school kids in the same way that we've had trials here in the UK of, I know it's going to be completely different, but people who are suffering with Alzheimer's dementia get a lot out of primary level kids in terms of the sort of thought processing.
Synapses.
Problem solving. Exactly. So just one question before we begin to wrap up, Mike. If you had one message for a veteran who might be listening to this episode, who so far might have been on their own and not reached out for support, what message would you give them?
And just, I don't know. I just need everybody to know that there's somebody that cares about you. Like, I think that people that they get to a point where suicide is actually an option, like a viable option, they feel as if the place is going to be better off without them. They really do. And honestly, from somebody who's come from the same background as my mother, the same background as my brother, right, and had these issues, like, I have to say, like, I've been in spots in my life where, I wasn't sure if the place was better off without me or not. I really wasn't. Okay. I never got so far as making a plan. Okay. And if anybody listening to this doesn't understand this, if you've made a plan or if you know someone who's talked about having made a plan, that's someone who needs intervention now, this moment. When you hear someone with a plan, you don't wait. You have them talk to a professional, even if they don't really want to, unless you're just not wanting to see them around anymore, because that is a key sign, right? So please, if you have made a plan or if you know someone who's made a plan, please reach out. The place is not better off without you. I guarantee it. I guarantee it's not. And on top of that, there are people that care about you. I know that sometimes it doesn't seem that way, but they do. Not everybody knows how to show you how to care about you the way you need to be shown. Okay. A lot of these people that don't show you that they care, if you were to ask them, they'd tell you they do. They tell you that they do show you that they care, but they just don't know how to do it the way that you receive it properly. So just understand that there's a lot of love out there for you that you just don't even perceive because of the way it's given. It's not that it's not there. It's that you just don't perceive it the way that it's given. So look into that, please, before you make some rash decision and do something that we're all going to regret. Okay? Please just look at that. Talk to somebody, listen, if it needs to be somebody that doesn't know who you are, then, get help on a 1-800 line, right? If you want to talk to me, right? Mike, M-I-K-E, Mike, at Patriot Models, Patriot, Pat Riot, Models, MODELS .org, O-R-G. My number is 678-982-8010. You can call me anytime, night or day, that you need help.
Thank you. I think that's very much appreciated. What I'd like to say, Mike, before we wrap up, is for our audience that are listening, if you were thinking of supporting Beyond the Box Art through Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee, we'd like you to do something different instead. Please consider supporting one of the incredible charities and organisations using scale modelling and community to change lives. In the United States, obviously, that's Patriot Models. Here in the UK, Models for Heroes. In Canada, the Royal Canadian Legion. And in Australia, Piece by Piece. Every donation, no matter how small, helps someone who needs it far more than we do. Nevs.
So just wanted to thank you so much for obviously joining us on the pod tonight here in the UK. I'm guessing it's more or less daytime on the East Coast in Florida. So on behalf of all of us, thank you to yourself, but also to Carrie and Tom for everything that you guys are doing over there in Patriot Models. Your mission is a powerful reminder that our hobby is about far more than gluing plastic kits together. It's about purpose, friendship, and community. It's simply about letting someone know they're not alone. Here at Beyond the Box Art, the show tagline is Models, Modelers, Meaning. and your work embodies every single one of those words. We do wish you every success with Patriot Models. And please remember that you will always have friends and supporters on the other side of the pond. Listeners, if you'd like to learn more about Patriot Models, support their mission, or help put a model kit into the hands of a veteran who could benefit from it, please visit patriotmodels.org. Every bit of support helps them continue their incredible work, helping veterans through therapeutic power of scale modelling. Mike, thank you once again for sharing your story with us, and we do look forward to welcoming you back onto the show soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I do have to say one last time, Malcolm Childs is the reason that Patriot Models is here. Right? If it weren't for Malcolm Childs and the work that he does with Models for Heroes, this would not be a thing. So not only has Malcolm given me advice and, basically done everything I've asked, he's given me carte blanche to ask him any question and give me any amount of time that I need. And when I asked him if I could clone what he's doing, he said definitely. So, he is so instrumental as well. So just another thank you to him and his organization.
Head over to modelpodcast.com and explore the best modelling podcasts available today. A worldwide podcast hub curated by Stuart Clark from the Scale Model Podcast. Coming up in episode 34, we join up again with the Scale Model Podcast crew and chat with the presidents of IPMS USA and UK.
Well, Benchmates, I think you'll agree that was quite a in-depth and interesting conversation, reference Patriot Models, but if you can support them in any way and all the other charities worldwide for scale modelling, please do so. And with that, time to say our goodbyes. So from Dan.
Be your Benchmates. Thank you for your time.
From Nevs.
Bye everyone, see you in the next one.
From Boulders.
Be the same, Benchmates.
And for myself, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in episode 34. Bye-bye for now.